But this guy and his classmates decided they needed to finally settle one thing once and for all, which one of them was actually the strongest fighter. Luckily, their academy happened to have a special machine built for exactly that purpose. The blonde guy strutted up first, all confidence. He threw his best, hardest punches at it. Score 7, honestly not bad at all. Dude looked pretty pleased with himself, and smirked while inviting our boy Joe Wen to give it a shot. Joe Wen strolled over like it was nothing, charged up a tiny bit of power in his fist, and just barely tapped the machine. Next second, the whole building shook. His classmates absolutely lost their minds, and even a teacher came sprinting in to see what just happened. Turns out the testing machine got obliterated by the sheer force of that one punch. It didn't even live long enough to show a score. Everyone just stood there asking the same question. How in the world did this guy get so absurdly strong? Because let's be real, while everyone else was actually paying attention in class and grinding themselves into the ground training for monster hunts, Joe Wen was busy sleeping through every single lecture, scrolling his phone and skipping every last one of his training sessions like effort itself gave him a rash. And now, out of nowhere, he's turned out to be 100 times stronger than every single one of them. What nobody realized was that this whole glow-up started the day Joe Wen found a mysterious phone hiding a one-of-a-kind game that let him level up in real life just by playing on his phone. Our story kicks off in a classroom where the bald teacher is calling out our protagonist, Joe Wen. Joe doesn't answer the roll call, so the bald teacher starts yelling like every stressed-out teacher on earth. Honestly, fair, the guy's straight up napping in the middle of class, leaving the bald teacher wondering why the old principal ever thought so highly of this lazy case. Cue the flashback. The old principal once told him there are only two kinds of genius in this world. One is the hero of this story, the other is literally everyone else. Now back to the present. The second the bell rings, our boy bolts out of that classroom without a word. The teacher's left scratching his bald head, wondering if the principal completely whiffed on judging Joe Wen's potential. Meanwhile, Joe's already sprinting down the corridor and bursting outside, straight into the tennis courts. Once he's finally alone with his phone, he lays it out for us. His whole life got flipped upside down the day he found this mysterious phone, and the game hiding inside it is exactly why he's been zoning out in class and ghosting his cultivation training. All he has to do is drop a bit of blood on the screen to unlock the hidden game app. Before he dives in, he scans the area to make sure nobody's watching. Then he grabs a needle, pricks his finger, and adds another drop of blood to roll up a character. The second the phone soaks up the blood, that crimson drop starts warping into something, morphing into an adorably chibi little avatar Joe Wen gets to control. And here's the game's whole hook: level up this avatar's stats and Joe levels up right along with it in real life. No need to risk life and limb grinding cultivation the hard way, he can just chill and game his way to power. He quickly hunts down some monsters in-game and unloads a flurry of punches with his avatar. One ant gets obliterated outright and the second gets its own fiery beatdown for good measure. As the sun starts going down, we catch up with the bald teacher again. He explains that finding a genius who can cultivate primordial energy at 16 is basically unheard of in the Earth Federation. But he's worried because Joe Wen is one of the rare few who's stuck to grinding out bitter meditation solo, no shortcuts. The whole school was banking on him taking first place at the upcoming practical test. Then, a month ago, something went down that wrecked the school's confidence in him completely. So let's rewind almost a month back to a crowd of students buzzing with shock. Somebody's just challenged our boy, and get this, it's a girl. People are already calling her insane for going after the school's prodigy on her very first day, as the two of them square off in the middle of the basketball court. Joe asks if they even know each other, but the girl skips the small talk and just tells him to bring it. Classic reckless move, he charges straight at her, only to eat a gut-wrenching kick that sends him flying. She's standing there like nothing happened while he's crashing to the floor like discount trash. One kick, that's all it took. Didn't even look like she broke a sweat. The crowd's frozen, completely unable to process that she flattened him with a single hit. Now everyone's whispering the same thing: who even is this girl? The bald teacher explains that ever since Jing humiliated Joe Wen, the kid's been running on zero motivation, just sleeping and gaming nonstop. And the old man's genuinely worried this path leads nowhere. Little does he know, this so-called dead end might just be the road to insane power. After finally clearing a wave of monsters, Joe Wen's blood avatar snags another primordial energy crystal, and the second he absorbs it, arcane blue energy wraps around him. Turns out, when the blood avatar absorbs a primordial energy crystal in-game, it actually boosts the player's real-world power too. Plus, the game shows stat numbers you'd never see otherwise. A month back, Joe's stats were pretty weak, but thanks to the game, they've shot up big time. He figures if he'd stuck to bitter meditation alone, he'd still be crawling forward after years of grinding. Scene 058. And this one's actually giving him trouble, a red mutated female. A mutated vigor ant, to be exact, faster and stronger than the standard variety. Joe knows he can take it down given enough time, but right as he's locked in, he hears footsteps closing in. It's Feng Ryuoxi. A total knockout in shorts, and just seeing her sends a jolt of panic through him. Last thing he needs is her finding out what he's actually playing. That secret gets out, he's cooked. Bailing on the fight isn't an option either though, so he just ignores her completely, playing it off like some phone-obsessed tech nerd. But Feng Ryuoxi calls out to him anyway, inviting him onto her team for the final practical exam. Still mid-battle, he asks why she'd even want him. Feng Ryuoxi tells him straight up she wants a high combat score, and that means strong teammates. Joe's honest with her though, pointing out he's not exactly the powerhouse he was before he lost his top student title a month ago. But she insists he's still the only student at Gaida High School worth calling her rival. He brings up Jing being the strongest, but Feng Ryuoxi drops the news and Jing already transferred out. That catches Ryuoxi off guard too, and she adds that wherever Jing came from, one thing's obvious: she's well past mortal level. Showed up out of nowhere, left just as fast, almost like she only came to challenge Joe. Feng Ryuoxi even figured there might have been some rivalry behind it. Joe mulls it over for a second, but shuts that idea down. He's never even met the girl, let alone had beef with her. Ryuoxi drops the subject and circles back to her original question. Joe sees his opening and agrees, figuring he might as well ride on her skills and leadership. Ryuoxi calls it settled, mentioning she's already locked in 2 other teammates. Starting today, the whole squad, Joe included, trains together every afternoon. With that, she quietly heads off, and he finally finishes off the red ant. He rushes to grab the primordial energy crystal, but the moment he does, a whole swarm of ants dogpiles him. Joe just yanks himself out of the game, planning to check the new crystal out later. Suddenly, a weird feeling hits him. His phone and his whole body start pulsing with crimson energy. And this intense sensation just floods through him, looks like the crystal's behind it. From what he knows, the Vigor Crystal is basically a legendary primordial energy skill crystal. He just has no clue what skill it's about to hand him. Wasting zero time, he drips some blood on the phone and boots up the game to see what's going on. The second he checks, he sees he just unlocked a brand new primordial energy skill. Later, the whole squad meets up, and Feng Ryuoxi introduces Zhou Wen as their 4th teammate to the other 2 guys. Both of them raise an eyebrow. Sure, they've heard of Zhou's skills, but he hasn't trained in over a month, so who knows if he's still got it. Tyne pipes up, saying their whole goal is first place in Gaida City's college entrance combat test, and he's not sure Zhou's the right pick. Maybe they should grab Zheng Yi instead. Honestly, Zhou gets the hesitation. This test is no joke. It can shape your entire future, from which university you get into to your job prospects and even your standing in society. Add in the fact that weak teammates get people killed, and yeah, wanting the best lineup makes total sense. Ryuoxi pushes back though, saying that as strong as Zheng Yi might be, Zhou's still her top pick. Tyne suggests a simple test to settle it if Zhou's cool with that. Ryuoxi, curious, asks what kind of test he's talking about. Tyne grins and says since he's the weakest of the 3 of them, he'll spar Zhou himself. Zhou wins, he's in. Zhou loses, he's out. Zhou raises the obvious concern sparring means someone could actually get hurt and nobody wins there. But Tyne shoots that down, saying the school's strength machines only spit out meaningless numbers. A real fight settles it, first to tap out loses. Ryuoxi starts running the numbers in her head on how Tyne stacks up against Zhou, and honestly, she's worried for him. After all, Zhou's never used a single primordial energy crystal to boost himself. And his family's clearly not well off, so he might not even have real combat skills to fall back on. Still, she's curious how this plays out. Meanwhile, Zhou considers just using the machine to settle it instead, and Tyne scoffs, asking if he's scared. Zhou just scratches his head, quietly worried he might actually hurt someone with one punch, so he decides to use the strength measuring machine instead. Tyne steps up first and cracks the machine with everything he's got. Everyone holds their breath, and the machine lights up at a score of 7. Zhou notes the numbers not identical to his in-game stats, but it's close enough. Before he even started playing, that used to be about his power level too. Tyne waves Zhou over to take his turn on the machine. When Zhou throws his punch, the impact cracks through the whole school like thunder. The bald teacher, walking down the hall at that exact moment, hears the noise and mutters to himself about who's messing with the testing machine when everyone's supposed to be resting. Curious, he heads toward the machine room, and as he quietly cracks the door open, he spots Zhou Wen and the others standing there. He's left wondering if his lazy student was really the one who threw that punch. And yep, it's him, alright. The room goes dead silent as everyone watches the machine flash a score of 10. Even the bald teacher watching from the doorway is floored. Now he's starting to wonder if Joe hasn't been slacking off this whole time after all. Maybe he's been training so hard he only had energy left to nap in class. Maybe the old principal was right about him all along. Ryuoxi, meanwhile, is stunned. Joe picked the hardest possible way to show off his strength and still hit 10 points without even touching a chi skill. Heinz, visibly rattled by this and swallowing what's left of his pride, he grudgingly tells Joe he's qualified. But he's not done. He throws one last punch just to salvage his dignity. His fist clenches, crackling with lightning, and slams into the machine with everything he's got. This time it reads 11. Tyne's completely gassed after that, and Joe gives him a thumbs up for the effort. Joe's got that curious look on his face though. Tyne snaps at him to focus and either beat 11 or eat the humiliation of losing. Joe casually asks if the school's gonna bill him for breaking the machine. Tyne confidently promises he'll cover it if it happens. Satisfied with that, Joe grins as a yellow glow starts wrapping around his whole body, winding up for the punch. Tyne's pretty convinced Joe's just running his mouth. This machine's built for serious testing, caps out at 20 points, and barely anyone in the school's ever hit that. But Joe's power keeps climbing, and he lets loose a punch laced with chi, leaving Ryuoxi stunned that he's actually using chi skills. The punch hits so hard the machine starts falling apart on the spot. Circuits fry from the sheer overload. Everyone watching just stands there stunned as he wrecks the machine like it's made of paper. Even the bald teacher can't wrap his head around it. That machine's rated to handle 20 points, and wrecking it like that would take a rank 8 or 9 chi skill. Easy. Right then, the bald teacher's mind flashes back to the old principal's words about Joe being the ultimate genius, and it finally clicks why he said it. Even Ryuoxi already knew Joe was strong. But watching it play out live is a whole different kind of shock. As evening rolls in, Joe takes a slow walk down a quiet city street, his mind drifting back to that fight with Jing. It bugs him. Why would someone at her legendary level even bother challenging a mortal level nobody like him? He's pretty sure he's never left Gaida province in his life, so where's the grudge even coming from? Out of nowhere, his phone rings. It's his dad asking if he's coming to the wedding. Joe curiously asks who the lucky bride even is. His playboy of a father fires back a photo of a woman with a very impressive figure and asks if his son approves of his future stepmom. Well, that's certainly one way to bond with your kid. Anyway, Joe asks when and where, and his dad casually says it's about a week out. That's when Joe reminds him his college entrance exam is that same week, so as much as he'd like to, he can't make it. He then asks if there's an iron cookie tin sitting in the closet. His clueless dad has no idea what he's talking about, so Joe describes it, a square tin about 10 inches, cartoon bear pattern on the lid. His dad connects the dots. That's the tin from those bear-shaped cookies he used to eat, though the brand's long dead. Curious why Joe's even asking, he questions him about it. Joe reveals there's a phone hidden inside that tin and asks if his dad put it there. His dad describes it, white metal shell, black screen, no buttons, roughly 7 or 8 inches long. When Joe confirms, his dad tells him it actually belongs to his grandfather. Joe's floored and asks how his grandfather ended up with it. So his dad lays out the wild backstory. Grandpa worked construction during the rebuilding of ancient Gaida City back when they were restoring all those old wooden buildings. He was on site for over a year, and one night while a few workers were pulling an all-nighter, they stumbled onto an ancient dry well with something glowing inside, thought they'd struck treasure. There was a box down in that well, and when they pulled the old wooden box out, light was leaking through the cracks and inside sat a phone. Its screen was lit at first, then went dark the second they touched it. No buttons, no charging port, dead as a rock. Everybody figured it was just a bust and moved on, so Grandpa tossed it in his toolbox. His dad adds that the thing never once powered back on. When his dad was younger, he even tried pawning it off at a repair shop for cigarette money. The owner said it was worthless junk, so it ended up back in that cookie tin. Now he's asking if Joe wants to sell it too. Inside, Joe's massively relieved his dad never managed to offload it, otherwise he'd never have gotten his hands on this thing. He asks if it's ever powered on since. His dad says never, not once in decades. His dad wraps the call saying he's got things to handle, leaves the wedding decision up to Joe. Once it's over, Joe realizes something. His real combat test is happening in ancient Gaida City. Might be worth digging around that old well for clues. He heads home and starts reworking his whole strategy. A's blur by him napping through class, catching Z's under a tree while everyone else grinds their training, and him just gaming the whole time. A few days later in the school corridor, 2 students come sprinting down the hall. A kid in glasses slams straight into a guy dressed like old money. Glasses kid hits the deck hard, but the other guy doesn't even flinch. He just stands there radiating creepy main character energy as he strolls off with his entourage. The people trailing behind him whisper about how intimidating the guy is. Cut to outside where we catch up with Tyne again. he announces he's quitting the team. Some friend already scooped him up for another squad. With that, he walks off, leaving Joe wondering if Ryuoxi's even got a backup plan since the test's right around the corner and finding a replacement now is basically impossible. He calls up his other teammate Lee Jiu to ask if he's heard Tyne Bylade. Lee Jiu drops his own bombshell he's out too and asks Joe not to press him on why. Finally, we find Feng Ryuoxi looking pretty defeated. Makes sense, her team's shrinking fast. The second she spots Joe, she starts apologizing. But he tells her to relax. Honestly, he's the one who should be sorry, since he's clearly the reason everyone's jumping ship. Apparently somebody out there has it out for him, and that's exactly why his teammates keep bailing. She admits she has no idea who he's ticked off, but whoever it is clearly holds real power, so he needs to watch himself. He agrees, and the two go their separate ways. His mind's racing about the test, stressed about scraping together a team he can actually trust in time. Heck, even Ryuoxi, his most reliable friend, doesn't want to team up with him anymore given all the heat he's drawing. As he's walking off, the bald teacher calls him over. Once Joe reaches him, the teacher reveals that Inspector Ang is military, full name Ang Tianjuo. He asks if Joe knows the guy, and Joe confirms he's never heard of him. The bald teacher finds that odd. If Joe's a total stranger to him, why would a high-ranking officer publicly call out some random high schooler by name during an inspection? Joe asks who exactly this guy is, so the bald teacher breaks it down. The Earth Federation split into 4 regions: East, South, West, North. Inspector Ang's young but comes from a powerful family, and he's already a senior officer in the East Region military before even turning 21. Genuinely impressive stuff. Joe asks if Ang's actually gunning for him specifically. The bald teacher can't say for sure, but apparently Ang Tianjuo did call Joe a bad student out loud, and everyone nodded along, eager to stay on his good side. Joe's furious. Does a senior officer not realize his words could tank a kid's entire future? Then he asks if Ang's somehow connected to Jing, the girl who beat him a month back. The bald teacher says it's possible, but they shouldn't jump to conclusions yet. Priority 1 is finding Joe a team before the registration deadline, which is the day after tomorrow. No time to waste. And his teammates can't just be anybody. The bald teacher reveals there's a student named Li Xuan at their school. If Li Xuan agrees to take Joe and the others on, nobody would dare cause trouble for them. There's one catch though. Joe has to actively help Li Xuan land a top score, meaning Li Xuan needs the highest score of all 4 teammates. Joe asks if that means handing over his own points to this new guy, and the teacher confirms it's his only shot at getting into the. Joe agrees to the deal and asks the bald teacher to set things up with Li Xuan. After that meeting, he calls his dad to ask if he knows anything about Inspector Ang Tianjuo. And that's when his dad drops the real bombshell: Ang Tianjuo is his brother. The news hits Joe like a lightning bolt out of nowhere. His dad explains Tianjuo is his stepmother's son, and once the marriage goes through, they'll officially be brothers. And as if that wasn't enough, his dad also mentions Joe's got a sister now too, Jing. Suddenly it all clicks for Joe why that girl showed up out of nowhere and humiliated him in front of the entire school. It was probably just to trash his reputation. He asks his dad if the two of them actually respect their soon-to-be stepfather. His dad insists they both think the world of him. After hanging up, Joe can't stop wondering why these 2 siblings are so dead set on messing with him. Maybe they're against the marriage. He thinks back on it, Tianjuo flexing his authority to block him from the exam, and Jing dropping him with 1 hit, all because he's simply too weak to stand up to either of them. Either way, he heads back to his cluttered, less-than-fragrant apartment, and dives right back into the game, figuring leveling up beats worrying. After clearing a mutated ant, he scores a rare drop, a symbiotic pet. Joe's hyped because getting a symbiotic pet at mortal level is basically unheard of. Most people don't unlock one until legendary level. The moment his blood avatar reaches for the egg, it starts cracking open and slams into his chest, and suddenly a voice echoes straight into his head, calling him master, swearing loyalty, even saying it'd die for him without hesitation. A wave of pain crashes through him and he snaps back on his bed, head pounding like crazy. Then he notices a fresh tattoo on his hand. Checking his phone, he finds he's now got a pet, a mutated immense strength ant, which can also transform into a fist weapon in its symbiotic form. Buzzing with excitement, he throws the curtains shut for privacy and tries to summon it, though he's honestly not sure how it even works. He just focuses on the pet and energy starts gathering in his hand, a glove-shaped weapon forming right above it. Turns out that glove is the pet's symbiotic form meant to buff the wearer's abilities. Curious, he summons the actual ant and the glove dissolves into mist. With the crimson haze slowly reshaping itself into the ant's form, it solidifies into something genuinely intimidating, but weirdly kind of adorable too. Joe's honestly a little spooked by the sight. And not gonna lie, this thing is way bigger than he expected. Either way, he decides to test ride it some other time, maybe once he's actually outside. The next day, the bald teacher walks Joe over to finally meet Lee Xuan, warning him beforehand that the guy is a bit full of himself but not actually a bad person. Since it's just for the test, no need to stress. Their car speeds down the highway, eventually pulling up to a place called the Honorable Royal Health Club. A staff member greets the bald teacher inside, who asks to see the Lee family's second son. Hearing that, she quickly leads them in. And yeah, the bald teacher wasn't exaggerating about Lee Xuan being pretentious. The place is straight up palatial and the man himself is surrounded by girls, looking like some rapper who just came into six figures. Lee Xuan tells the bald teacher to sit down and grab a drink. But the old teacher declines and gets straight to business, introducing Joe on the spot and vouching that he can absolutely help Lee Xuan score well on the exam. Lee Xuan waves off the pitch entirely, saying he trusts the bald teacher enough to just take Joe on for his sake. With that settled, the bald teacher heads out, telling both of them to hammer out the test logistics. Before leaving, he turns to Joe and tells him to get comfortable with Lee Xuan and his crew, the test's coming up fast. The bald teacher exits and Lee Xuan turns to Joe, claiming he's heard the rumors. Apparently Joe's the biggest genius guy to high school's ever had. Joe just brushes it off as gossip and tells him not to buy into it. Lee Xuan agrees, pointing out that a backwater province like this producing an actual genius is basically impossible. Then he reminds Joe that a real genius wouldn't have gotten dropped by Jing in one move. He tells Joe he doesn't need to bother with any team training, just follow orders and don't stir up trouble. Then he throws out a challenge: chug an entire bottle of alcohol in one go and Joe can pick any girl in the club he wants. Joe barely glances up from his phone and says he doesn't drink. This playboy is clearly unimpressed with the attitude and starts second-guessing whether taking on this deadweight was even worth doing the bald teacher a favor. To mess with him, Lee Xuan tells one of the girls to go entertain Joe. She calls him a naughty boy for being so mischievous, then starts hovering around Joe. She leans in trying to grab his attention, but Joe's eyes stay locked on his screen as she gets handsy and tries to touch him. It's clear Joe's got zero bandwidth to deal with this human-shaped mosquito right now. He's trying his best to focus, but she's relentless and starting to genuinely grind his gears. As she keeps bothering him, forcing him to look up, his in-game avatar ends up in real danger. Right before he's about to lose the fight, he flings her off like an absolute unit and yanks his avatar out of harm's way. The playboy nearly spits out his drink, stunned that Joe just tossed a woman aside to save his phone game. The whole room bursts out laughing at how ridiculous it is. Turns out Joe lost the game anyway, and he is not taking it well. Meanwhile, Lee Xuan's actually starting to warm up to this guy as night falls. The room's a graveyard of empty bottles and shot glasses. Lee Xuan's passed out cold in bed with a girl. But look closer and turns out he's still wide awake. Meanwhile, Joe's still glued to his game, hellbent on beating the silver-winged mosquito. No luck though, that pesky bug keeps handing his avatar its head. After grinding all night, every single attempt ends in failure. The mosquito's nowhere near legendary level, so beating it should be doable. Joe figures a clean rank 9 power punch could really hurt it, but since it's slow to wind up, he's wondering if he can pair it with something faster. Since his in-game character mirrors him directly, Joe figures if he sharpens his actual real-world punch, the game will sync up the gains automatically. So he starts drilling his punch, hoping it translates in-game. As he trains, Lee Xuan sneaks a glance, weirdly curious about the dedication. He has no clue what Joe's even doing. This whole 1-inch punch thing sounds like nonsense to him. He shrugs, assuming Joe's got some hidden skill, but not seeing anything impressive, he just rolls back over to sleep. Then the college entrance exam finally arrives. Joe diligently fills out his answer sheet, right alongside Lee Xuan doing the same. Once it wraps and everyone files out, it's clear that exam wrecked everybody. The whole crowd looks defeated. A few days later, a busload of students rolls down the highway, heading straight for ancient Gaida City. Decades back, when the dimensional storm hit, a dimensional crack tore open here, turning the place into a realm crawling with mutated flora and fauna. Troops guard the perimeter now, nobody gets in without a pass. And the real combat test is about to kick off, right in the middle of this eerie, monster-warped city. Once the bus stops and everyone piles out, Joe clocks a ton of soldiers keeping a close watch on everything. Awaiting on his teammates, he glances around and spots a sign reading Gaida Province. Right beside it, a palm-shaped emblem embedded in the wall catches his eye. Suddenly his phone rings. Assuming it's his dad, he pulls it out. To his shock, it's actually the mysterious phone, the one he games on. That thing has never made or received a call, never even vibrated once, so this is dead weird. Even stranger, there's now a camera app active. He opens it, unsure what he's even supposed to do. Figuring maybe it wants a selfie, he decides to snap the scenic view instead. But the camera on the mysterious phone is being difficult, and as he fumbles with it, he accidentally aims it at the palm-shaped emblem near the Gaida province sign. The phone instantly locks onto it, and the second he snaps the photo, a brand new app pops up on screen. Looks like it's some kind of dungeon entry app for the game. Since he's got time to kill, he figures why not, and after dropping a bit of blood, his avatar materializes and he finds himself walking through what looks like Gaida City, rendered inside the game. As he pushes forward, he spots a creature straight out of another realm entirely. An adorable little skeleton soldier. It charges him swinging a weapon way too big for it, and Joe's suddenly in an unexpected scrap. Joe dodges its clumsy swings without even trying. This thing's neither fast nor strong, a total breeze compared to the ants he usually deals with. His avatar balls up its fist and shatters the skeleton to pieces with one devastating. The skeleton drops its crystal almost instantly, and Joe's pumped to find a skill crystal right out of his very first kill. He hits absorb and the crystal's power comes flooding straight into him. Turns out it doesn't hurt nearly as much as last time, it way smoother absorption overall. The system pings, confirming he's just picked up the skeleton palm skill, costing a measly 1 chi point. Solid start on paper, but Joe's not exactly thrilled. Skeleton soldiers are low-tier trash, so their skills barely sip any chi. Still, no point complaining, he figures he'll just see what this new move can actually do. With a flash of light, he summons his mutated immense strength ant, and hops right onto its back. The ant tears off through the ruined city, speed way better than expected as it plows deeper in. Not long after, more skeletons and zombies show up, and he cuts through them without breaking stride, basically glorified punching bags at this point. Convinced every kill's stacking up more crystals, he's genuinely vibing with the grind, but after a while, our boy's excitement fizzles out fast. Turns out he's gotten nothing despite dropping a small army of skeletons. Pushing deeper into the dungeon, he stumbles onto something new, a pack of scrawny skeleton zombies guarding what's clearly the final boss, a massive skeleton mounted on a horse. The skeleton knight doesn't waste a second, closing the gap with terrifying speed. One clean hit runs straight through Joe's avatar and he's dead on the spot. Game over. Screen up, he glances back at the emblem near the signpost, now dead certain that whatever's past that gate. Gaida province is hiding way more than anyone realizes. Suddenly, someone appears right behind him. He spins around to find his stepsister standing there, looking about as happy to see him as always, which is to say, not at all. Cut to a moment later, Joe's holding a USB drive, and honestly, we're just as confused as you about how it got there. Flashback time, his stepsister had just swung a fist at his face, stopping a hair's breadth short, before informing him their dad asked her to hand off something to him and shoved the drive into his hand. Walking off, she mutters about how their dad's wasting his time on someone as pathetic as Joe. Straight up calling him a loser, insisting he'll never really count as an Aang since nobody in her family is anywhere near as weak and useless as him. Joe's just standing there confused, since when did he sign up to join her family anyway? Before he can dwell on it, Li Xuan's voice calls out. Joe turns to find him finally showing up with the other 2 teammates in tow, dressed so casually he looks like he wandered in from a beach party, not a life-or-death exam. Li Xuan slaps a hand on Joe's shoulder, telling him not to sweat it. His lackeys have this whole thing handled. Both flunkies nod along, one even bragging he could solo clear all of Gaida province for his boss. Li Xuan, unimpressed, doesn't seem too thrilled by that level of overconfidence. The other one, sporting a black hat, steps up and promises nothing will go sideways. Watching this, Joe clocks exactly what's happening. Li Xuan's keeping himself and Joe on the sidelines, planning to throw these 2 flunkies in as pawns. Test time finally rolls around and a soldier orders everyone to report to their invigilator. That's when Feng Ryuoxi comes into view. Joe spots her too, flashing a warm smile and shooting her a thumbs up. That seems to put her at ease a little, relieved he actually landed a team. Right then, the city gates start groaning open, spilling out a bright blue glow that folds itself into some kind of portal. A guy in glasses, the invigilator, presumably steps forward and lays out the rules. Scores based on crystals collected from killing skeleton soldiers, and that same tally decides everyone's ranking. With that, he waves everyone toward the gate. Joe strides toward the portal without hesitation, and the moment he crosses through, he finds himself on the other side, surrounded by other students fully ready for whatever this dungeon throws at him. Skeletons start swarming in, and students dive at them like they're the last roll of toilet paper on a Costco shelf during a panic sale. The skeletons clatter forward, bones rattling in a way that's honestly kind of comedic. Zhang Hao drops one with a single clean swing, slicing clean through its neck like it's warm butter. Meanwhile, the loudmouth lackey grabs another skeleton by the hand and knees it so hard it explodes into bone confetti. Turns out Joe's got nothing to worry about, this crew's genuinely strong. which conveniently gives him the perfect excuse to sneak in a look at something on his phone he's been dying to check. Lee Cheon, meanwhile, is thoroughly baffled watching Joe just game through all this, silently questioning whether this guy's actually a genius or just full of hot air. Meanwhile, whatever theory Joe was chasing down, it's confirmed his hunch was dead on. Turns out he was comparing the map layout, and it's not just the city gate, even the buildings match the game's dungeon exactly. That gets him wondering if every real-world dungeon is mirroring an actual location inside the game. The realization hits him like a truck, and his face drains of color instantly. If the real world matches the game this closely, the Skeleton Knights gotta be out here too. Thankfully, based on what he's already scouted in-game, they're still nowhere near it. So as long as they stick to the testing zone, that nightmare stays out of the picture. A little while later, the group huddles up, planning to push deeper into the city. Joe, understandably, is dragging his feet, and we already know exactly why. The lackeys point out that this section's mostly farmed out already, respawns slowing to a crawl if they want a real score, going deeper is the only option. Joe tries warning them that leaving the testing zone is a genuinely bad idea, but Lee Cheon just shrugs, telling him he can stay behind if he's scared. The lackeys back him up, insisting deeper is their only shot at a big score, so Lee Cheon tells Joe to just tag along, promising his boys will cover him if things go south. Joe's stuck in a rough spot, can't exactly announce there's a horrifying monster waiting around the corner without sounding insane, so he pockets his phone and decides to just stick with the group for now, planning to keep grinding the Skeleton Knight in-game to crack a winning strategy. It's his only real shot at getting both himself and Lee Cheon out of this alive, as the two lackeys charge on ahead, macking down skeletons left and right with all their flashy moves. Meanwhile, Joe and Lee Cheon just stroll along at the back, Joe completely zoned into his game, getting his virtual butt handed to him by the Skeleton Knight, defeat after humiliating defeat. Joe's forced to face facts, dodging or jumping does nothing, that sword always finds him, and honestly it's scarier than the silver-winged mosquito ever was. Then it clicks. The Skeleton Knight isn't fast all the time, it only ramps up speed mid-charge. He's pretty sure it's pulling that burst of speed from some chi fighting skill. No clue how to counter it yet, and if this keeps up, they're all getting wiped. But then something catches his eye. The dead monsters dropped a hefty crystal. One of the lackeys snatches it up immediately and rushes over to show it off to his boss, handing the crystal straight over to Lee Cheon. Joe reminds Lee Cheon they've already banked enough points and should bail now while they can. The lackey disagrees, insisting there's no rush, plenty of time left before the exam wraps. Zhang Hao chimes in, saying they should farm a bit more to lock in the top spot. Lee Cheon checks his phone, sees no reports of anything above legendary level nearby, and figures it's safe enough to keep going. Joe grabs his arm and asks if he believes in gut instinct. Lee Cheon just blinks at him, confused about where this is even coming from. Joe explains he always gets this awful feeling right before danger hits, and it's never once been wrong. And right now, that feeling is screaming at him about whatever's up ahead. Of course, one of the flunkies isn't buying it, snapping at Joe that he should count himself lucky to even be on this team, and he'd better not tank everyone's score over some vague gut feeling. Joe fires back, pointing out Gaida Province is a small territory and no student in their right mind ever leaves the testing zone. Plus, they've already racked up enough points to stay ahead just farming safely, there's zero reason to go poking into the unknown. Joe's logic actually lands, and Lee Cheon grudgingly admits he's got a point. But right then, Zhang Hao pulls out a razor-sharp dagger and plunges it straight into Lee Cheon's back. After that cowardly sneak attack, the bastard just grins like a cat that finally cornered its mouse, thoroughly enjoying his own betrayal. The blonde lackey tries jumping in to protect his boss, but Zhang Hao drops him just as easily. Eyes gone cold and menacing, Zhang Hao tells his fallen comrades to just die like dogs. Lee Cheon, for his part, admits he genuinely didn't see this coming. In an instant, his wound seals shut completely, and he turns to the traitor, calmly asking if his brother sent him. Zhang Hao's caught off guard that a playboy like Lee Cheon actually practices the chi spell known as Invincible Constitution. Quick breakdown time, chi spells are a different beast entirely from chi fighting skills or crystals, they're specific man-made techniques, each carrying its own hard cultivation ceiling. Invincible Constitution happens to be one of the rare few that can push someone's ceiling all the way to epic tier. Catch is, legend says only virgins can practice it, lose that status, and you're starting from absolute zero again. Joe's more than a little skeptical Lee Cheon actually practices this thing, seeing as the guy's constantly surrounded by women he's clearly trying to smash. The down lackey speaks up, disgusted his own friend would sell out and work against Lee Cheon. Lee Cheon echoes that same disappointment, insisting he never even wanted to compete with his brother for power, so why does his brother want him dead? Zhang Hao just sneers back that Li Xuan will only have himself to blame for what's coming. With that, Zhang Hao channels energy into his dagger and hurls a green energy slash straight at Li Xuan, but he sidesteps it with such effortless grace it's honestly hard to believe. Zhou and the lackey both freeze up at the sight of a massive snake. The explosive scale snake. It's obvious now Zhang Hao's no ordinary flunky. Summoning a legendary level creature like this takes real backing. Li Xuan, meanwhile, just stands there looking completely unbothered. He casually explains legendary pets can be acquired if someone at that tier is willing to pay a fortune to transfer over a symbiotic egg. Zhang Hao actually looks a little impressed by how much Li Xuan clearly knows. But he shakes it off fast and lunges at Li Xuan with the dagger again. Li Xuan just casually catches the blade barehanded like it's nothing at all. Zhang Hao's jaw drops. He was clearly not prepared for this level of unhinged badassery. Li Xuan's calm expression shifts into something straight out of a dark fantasy cover art. With one lazy flick, he detonates a massive burst of energy, sending Zhang Hao skidding across the dirt. It's crystal clear now Li Xuan's way more than a pretty face. The guy's packing serious firepower behind that legendary level creature. Striding forward, crackling with dark energy, looking like a boss straight out of Dark Souls, the stage is set for a real showdown. The sheer terror radiating off him sends Zhang Hao stumbling backward like his life depends on it, which honestly it does. But Li Xuan isn't letting him off that easy, leaping forward and chasing him down immediately. Zhou tries keeping pace too, but both of them are just leagues too fast for him. He loses sight of them completely. The lackey beside him urges Zhou to keep chasing, insisting they need to back up Li Xuan no matter what. Zhou just waves him off. Yeah, you go ahead, I'll catch up. The blonde lackey huffs, calls him a coward, and stomps forward on his own to find his boss. Truth is, Zhou knows chasing after them wouldn't help anyway. Both Li Xuan and Zhang Hao are packing legendary level creatures and he's got nothing close to that. His real worry right now is the skeleton knight bump into that thing and it's game over for everyone. So the only real way to help Li Xuan is figuring out how to actually beat it. Zhou pricks his thumb again, drops a bit of blood, and his avatar pops back into the game. Dead set on figuring this thing out, he throws himself at the skeleton knight, determined to find a real-world solution. The skeleton knight comes charging on horseback immediately, and Zhou realizes fast that running is a dead-end plan. Once it commits to a charge, dodging it is basically impossible. So instead, he leaps straight toward it, catching the empty-headed monster completely off guard. Visibly annoyed, the knight starts swinging its spear wildly, trying to nail Zhou. But Zhou's no sitting duck. He keeps circling the knight, who's stuck up on his horse, flailing to land a single hit. As things heat up, Zhou keeps weaving left and right until the skeleton knight busts out its trump card and slams a clean hit straight into the avatar's chest. Turns out he got clipped because a commotion nearby pulled his focus. He's pretty sure Li Xuan just ran into the skeleton knight himself. Pocketing his phone, he runs back through everything he learned in-game. The skeleton knight hits hard, but it's got a blind spot right near its horse. Exploit that properly and they've got a real shot at surviving this. Pushing forward, he spots piles of rubble, a clear sign the fight's close by. Short walk later, he finds them, rushing over to check if everyone's okay. Li Xuan, decked out in armor now, says calling it okay would be a serious overstatement. This thing is on an entirely different level. Zhou's genuinely terrified seeing the skeleton knight up close. It's way more horrifying than its in-game version. He also notices Zhang Hao standing right behind it, and it's throwing him completely since the skeleton knight isn't attacking him at all. Then he clocks the armor Zhang Hao's wearing. That's probably why the knight's leaving him alone entirely. And honestly, Zhou finds it deeply unsettling that Li Xuan's brother is loaded enough to deck this one henchman out with multiple legendary-level creatures. The knight clocks the group as a threat and comes charging at them on horseback. Li Xuan jumps in front, yelling for everyone to stand back, snapping his shield up right before the strike lands. The clash detonates in a burst of raw power, shockwaves ripping outward violently. So intense that the guy standing next to Zhou gets flung like a bug, slamming into the ground with a sickening thud. He coughs violently but insists he's fine, obviously in pain. As the dust clears, the skeleton knight and Li Xuan are locked in a dead stalemate. Right then, Li Xuan spots a sneak attack incoming, Zhang Hao's explosive scale snake again. He snaps his shield up just in time, stopping the snake cold. Zhang Hao recalls his snake back, grinning maniacally as he taunts Li Xuan about handling two threats at once. While the knight keeps grinding him down, this cocky traitor charges in too, piling on the pressure. His armor starts fracturing under the non-stop assault, clearly not going his way. Zhou asks how long it'll take him to finish off Zhang Hao if Zhou can keep the skeleton knight busy in the meantime. Li Xuan answers with total confidence, 2 minutes tops, no doubt in his voice. The lackey silently laughs it off, convinced Zhou's just mortal level, no way he survives even a few hits from that thing, let alone holds it off. trying is basically suicide, but Joe just calmly strips off his coat and settles into a stance. It leaps straight in behind the skeleton knight, casually taunting it into a fight, and the empty-headed thing takes the bait immediately. Planting itself right in front of Joe, it lunges instantly, but Joe sidesteps clean, recognizing the move. It's basically identical to what he's already fought in-game. But as the horse takes another stride, its massive hoof cracks the ground on impact. Joe rolls hard to dodge a direct hit and keeps darting around like a madman just to stay alive. He quickly realizes this real-world version is way more agile mid-attack than its game counterpart. The exchange keeps going, the knight relentlessly trying to land a hit on him, but Joe keeps weaving left and right, staying just out of range. Then he winds up a fist and slams it into the horse's ribs, though clearly it lands about as hard as a mosquito bite on an elephant. The skeleton knight seems almost entertained toying with this weakling, while Joe scrambles to find any actual weak point. Meanwhile, the blonde lackey finally staggers back to his feet, feeling thoroughly pathetic since Joe's out here stalling the skeleton knight with zero symbiotic pet backup. Even Zhang Hao's baffled that he's keeping up with this monster so effortlessly. Right then, Li Xuan reminds Zhang Hao that getting distracted mid-fight is a rookie mistake and drives a brutal punch straight into his face, which sends him flying like a ragdoll. Somehow, he still manages to plant his feet again and challenge Li Xuan directly, making it clear he's not backing down short of death. The two of them go right back to trading blows. And honestly, Li Xuan's fine with obliging him if he's that desperate to get killed. Zhang Hao finally starts buckling under the pressure. In one final blow from the armored hero seals it, Zhang Hao's coughing up blood while his symbiotic pet starts cracking apart. But this guy's stubborn as hell. He drags himself upright and throws his snake back into the fight to distract Li Xuan again. The moment Li Xuan's attention slips, Zhang Hao tries to sneak up on Joe from behind. At the exact same time, the knight swings at Joe too, but he ducks with insane reflexes, letting both attacks whiff clean over his head. Then Joe winds up and shatters Zhang Hao's symbiotic pet with a single devastating punch. Turns out he's fighting with his own symbiotic pet as a glove. And the instant Zhang Hao's pet is gone, the skeleton knight rams its spear straight through his chest. Snake shrieks in pain too, shrinking down from its once mighty form into a pathetic little gecko. That's when Li Xuan just steps on the sad, stinking little thing and ends it for good. With that threat handled, the skeleton knight starts transforming, finally cutting loose with its true power. Radiating a genuinely menacing aura now, it launches straight into an attack on Joe. It's moving so fast Joe has zero window to dodge, so he braces to just eat the hit. That's when Li Xuan steps in and deflects it at the last second. But the attack's so brutal that Li Xuan takes the full impact anyway, his armor shattering like cheap glass. Joe's panic spikes seeing this. If even Li Xuan's struggling this hard, they're in real trouble. Meanwhile, the skeleton knight winds up for another strike, sending both of them running. That's when Li Xuan lays out a plan. Joe lands the killing blow while he himself keeps the knight distracted. The second it commits to an attack, Li Xuan swoops in and blocks it head-on. While he's tied up with that, Joe spots his opening and appears right behind the empty-headed thing, winding up a fist for one devastating punch. The strike ignites the knight and shakes the whole battlefield. But once the dust clears, the skeleton knight is still standing there, just as menacing as ever. Joe's genuinely stunned it didn't even flinch. The knight immediately swings back at him, but he leaps clear like dodging second nature by now. Li Xuan steps back in, blocking the knight's next strike head-on. Joe follows up with a fiery flurry of punches, scorching the skeleton knight with every hit. The punches land so fast they detonate into a massive explosion. Li Xuan stunned by the sheer volume of hits, and yet the knight's still barely phased. As the haze clears though, the knight's clearly furious now, and Joe spots something, a scar running across its skull. Sure enough, there's a real crack forming in that thick skull. Li Xuan clocks it instantly and knows exactly what needs to happen. He hurls Joe straight up into the sky while pulling the skeleton knight's attention with a reckless attack of his own. As the knight glances up, all it sees is Joe rocketing down at full speed. It tries swinging its sword in defense, but Li Xuan pushes past his limit and pins the blade to the ground. Defenseless now, the knight has nowhere to go as Joe comes crashing down, slamming a devastating punch straight into the top of its skull. The impact's brutal enough that its skull finally shatters, triggering a massive explosion. Joe flashes a grin, thoroughly satisfied, as the skeleton knight crumbles into a pile of bones and rubble, leaving a crystal behind, a clean, undeniable sign of victory. Joe wastes zero time scooping it up, except it's not actually a crystal at all. It's a symbiotic egg. Even better, honestly. Li Xuan just walks off as his armor dissolves away, telling Joe he can keep the egg for himself. Throwing his hoodie back on, he reminds Joe that without him, they'd both be corpses right now, so consider the egg a thank you gift. Then he warns him his level's way too low to hatch a legendary tier creature. So cracking open the skeleton knight's egg recklessly is a terrible idea. Joe nods, taking the warning seriously, and that's when Li Shuan notices his gauntlet and asks how exactly he pulled off his own symbiotic pet. He's suspicious. Only invincible constitution should let someone handle a legendary level beast like a black armored soldier. He starts wondering if Joe's secretly legendary level himself. Joe sets him straight. He's still mortal level, plain and simple, but that just shocks Li Shuan even harder. Apparently legendary creatures are stronger overall, but forming a symbiotic egg is actually harder to pull off with weaker mortal level creatures, which makes mortal level symbiotic eggs even rarer than legendary ones. And Li Shuan's low-key jealous he ended up with something this rare. Joe, meanwhile, starts worrying whether anyone spotted Zhang Hao's corpse. Li Shuan just shrugs, saying the guy had it coming and promises he'll handle the cleanup himself. Joe's still visibly tense though, so Li Shuan gives him a reassuring pat on the shoulder, telling him to relax. He promises that once they're out, Joe can apply to any college he wants and he'll personally guarantee he gets in. The three of them step out through the portal, injured lackey in tow, and Li Shuan quickly briefs the invigilator on what went down inside. Once things settle, Li Shuan heads out, trading quick goodbyes with Joe. While he peels off in his private car, Joe just hops the bus back into the city. Once the bus pulls up, he steps off feeling freezing and a little woozy, probably all that blood he's been draining into the game. Figures it's time to fix that with some iron-rich food. Walking down the street, he accidentally kicks something, a guy sprawled on the ground, smeared head to toe in blood. For a split second he panics, thinking he just found a corpse, but the mystery man abruptly sits up, assuring Joe he's very much alive, just dealing with some minor nagging injuries. Joe tries walking off, but the old guy insists on a quick chat, since fate's clearly thrown them together. Joe's not exactly chatty by nature, but the old man won't let it go, insisting on a few questions. With zero idea what he's even in for, Joe reluctantly agrees to stick around. And the conversation kicks off in the weirdest way possible. The old man just flat out asks if Joe's into big-chested women. Joe's caught completely off guard, but after a moment of mentally weighing his options, he lands on the flatter option. The old man cracks up laughing, saying he's exactly the same. He rambles on about how smaller's objectively better and only fools would say otherwise. Joe awkwardly ends up imagining how the physics of a bigger chest would just get in the way mid-fight, especially with the jiggle turned all the way up. The old pervert fires off another curveball. Does Joe prefer soft, gentle women or the short-tempered, sassy type? Joe genuinely has no idea what to say. At this point, he just wants to go home, so hoping to end this fast, he picks what feels like the worst possible answer and mutters that he prefers sassy, short-tempered women. The old man goes quiet for a beat, then his eyes light up with something like admiration, agreeing he's exactly the same. Sassy women are just more fun, and gentle types get boring fast. He even admits he didn't expect a kid this young to have such refined taste. Joe just facepalms internally, immediately thinking of his stepsister casually curb-stomping him. He genuinely cannot fathom why anyone would want a girl with zero mercy. The old man just beams, saying it's rare to find someone with such good taste. Joe, trying to wrap this up, asks where he lives so he can walk him home. The old creep completely ignores the question, instead pointing out that Joe can't exactly chase girls if his health is trash. And right now, running on empty like this, good taste alone won't get him anywhere. He then hands Joe a small notebook, claiming it holds a chi spell worth practicing. Joe's genuinely stunned by the offer. The old man explains the spell will make any woman obedient, no matter how stubborn, so he'd better take it seriously and master it completely. Joe hesitates, saying he's already got other chi spells and doesn't need another. But the old man points out that while the true demonic records isn't top tier, it still blows bitter meditation out of the water. Joe's floored, realizing this stranger somehow already knows he practices bitter meditation, and he demands to know how the hell some random old coot figured that out. The old man explains that despite Joe's pale complexion, his build is solid and taut, a dead giveaway that only comes from grinding bitter meditation. He can tell it hasn't been long and warns Joe to quit before he wrecks his own body. Instead, he pushes the true demonic records again, insisting it's 100 times stronger than bitter meditation. Then he immediately one-ups himself, cackling that it's actually 1,000 times better, laughing like an absolute maniac. Joe, at a total loss, just politely thanks him and declines. No way he's taking something this valuable from a total stranger. Privately, Joe's wary too, since he's never even heard of a chi skill called the true demonic records, so he decides to bail, refusing to get roped in by some sketchy old coot. As he turns to leave, the old man goes eerily quiet. Then, voice dripping with menace, he tells Joe to stop, and with that single command, Joe's next step falters. He physically can't move forward, his face drains white. and he's yanked backward right back to the exact spot he'd been standing. The old man finally introduces himself, Jin Dioxian, flatly stating he doesn't take no well and nobody who's told him no has lived to regret it. The name instantly clicks in Joe's head. Eyes going wide in disbelief, he remembers this exact name from history books, a man born during the chaos of the first dimensional storms. Jin Dioxian, the most ruthless, terrifying figure in recorded history, the devil who drowned the Federation in blood and personally slaughtered 27 epic-level fighters, one right after another. The old man calmly asks if he's changed his mind or if he's still refusing the true demonic records. Joe immediately caves, saying he'll take it, no questions asked. Jin finds the sudden flip suspicious, asking if Joe's bluffing or genuinely wants it, seeing as he flat-out refused it just seconds ago. Joe doesn't say it out loud, but privately he has zero intention of actually learning it. He knows. Picking it up would just make him a wanted man, exactly like this old lunatic in front of him. Jin decides against handing it over after all, figuring Joe wouldn't even practice it seriously. Instead, Jin digs through his coat and turns back to Joe, saying he's got another chi spell that's actually pretty fun. He pulls out a slimmer notebook, asking if Joe wants to give it a shot. Joe just eyes it warily this time, not bothering to argue like before. The old pervert just shoves the notebook into his hands, warning that refusing this one comes with consequences he won't enjoy. With that, Jin turns and starts to walk off, disappearing into the crowded streets and leaving Joe standing there with way more questions than answers. He can't shake the feeling he's still being watched somehow. Staring down at the notebook in his hand, he can't even remember how he ended up walking off with it in the first place. Right then he sneezes hard and just takes off running for home. On the way, he spots a few officers talking amongst themselves. One asks if the reading was picked up near here and a redhead confirms it was. He tells her to search the area and stay in contact. Joe notices their badges and clocks instantly they're Federation agents. His mind jumps straight to Jin Dioxian, they're probably hunting him down. The same guy he literally just talked to. Still, he keeps his head down and walks on, convincing himself this whole mess has nothing to do with him. The second he's home, the very first thing on his mind is a hot bath. Soaking in it, he just marvels at how insane today turned out. Li Xuan got backstabbed by his own friend, and on the walk home, Joe randomly bumps into the actual legendary devil, Jin Dioxian. All he wanted was to get cozy in his room and grind his game in peace. He glances at the notebook Jin gave him, wondering if it's actually worth anything. Either way, he just collapses into bed, ready for some much-needed sleep. The second he drifts off, monsters start closing in from every direction in his dream. It's so overwhelming that he bolts upright in bed, drenched in sweat, standing up on shaky legs. He stumbles to the toilet and throws up, head throbbing with pain. He has zero clue what's happening to his body. Then his eyes land on Jin's notebook and words flash across the page, Lost Immortal Sutra. He grabs it, scanning every page, every angle, but nothing seems off. Now he's starting to wonder if this is just plain old anemia. As the sun comes up on a new day, he washes his face. In catching his reflection, he actually feels pretty refreshed. Naturally, he decides to kick off the day with some quality game time. He grabs the phone, pricks his finger, and drips a few drops of blood onto the screen. His avatar loads up instantly, and once inside, he's surprised to find the skeleton knights still right there, meaning the in-game monsters and their real-world counterparts don't affect each other at all. Honestly, a welcome discovery since it gives him another shot to give it another go. The monster charges him again and once more. Joe eats another defeat. After hours of non-stop grinding, he's absolutely wiped out. This version's weaker than its real-world counterpart, sure, but without Li Xuan backing him up, he's still struggling to crack it. His only real option is perfecting his positioning through pure repetition. Might take days, and there's no telling how much blood it's gonna cost him. Trying to figure out safe blood loss limits, he digs online, but the sheer wall of information is overwhelming. So, in classic Joe fashion, he just says screw it and grabs some nuts for a quick energy fix. And honestly, the real fix for blood loss is simple, just don't die. Still, he figures he'd better stock up on food before diving back into the grind. Throwing on a jacket, he heads to the nearest store, grabbing all the healthy stuff he can find to keep his nutrients up. Back home, Joe dives right back into the grind, stacking up cans of food beside him as he goes. Yeah, turns out healthy options didn't quite survive contact with the grocery store. After endless attempts, he finally starts matching pace with the skeleton knight, spotting an opening midair, and smashes its skull to pieces. The kill drops a level 13 crystal, this one boosting speed. Joe happily claims his reward, but checking his stats, his speed only ticks up a couple points, capping out at 9. Weird, since it should have jumped to 13, looks like he's just hit the ceiling for his current level. Joe starts considering whether grinding bitter meditation could push him to legendary level. But like Jin Dioxian said, bitter meditation doesn't hold a candle to invincible constitution. He's itching for something stronger, so he starts wondering if he should actually try the spell Jin left him. That's when a random thought clicks into place. He jumps into his chair, fires up his PC, and plugs in that USB drive his stepsister delivered, courtesy of his dad. Half expecting some chi spell on it, though he figures it's a long shot. But the second the system reads the drive, sure enough, there's a spell on it called the sun shooting spell. His jaw hits the floor and he actually pinches himself to check he's not dreaming. Because both this and invincible constitution can push someone straight to legendary level and beyond. Primarily geared toward attacks, the sun shooting spell's actually less demanding than invincible constitution too, and it looks like a family heirloom spell from someone connected to the Federation. He has absolutely no clue how his dad got his hands on it. Maybe he paid the Yang family, his soon-to-be stepfamily, for it through their connections, but he shakes that thought off fast, figuring his dad's just not the type to go to such lengths. Right then his phone rings, his dad calling in. He's a little curious why his son's reaching out at this hour. When he picks up, Joe throws him off completely by asking if he's still alive and in one piece. His dad just fumbles for a response. Before snapping back, telling him to knock on wood and calling him a little brat. Turns out Dad's totally fine, Joe was just checking in. Then he shifts gears, saying he's got an actual question. His dad tells him to shoot, so Joe asks straight up where he got the sun shooting spell. There's a long, uncomfortable pause before his dad asks what sun shooting spell he's even talking about. That throws Joe hard and he presses again, didn't he tell Jing to hand it over? His dad flatly says he's never cared about cultivation, so there'd be no reason for him to go chasing something like that. Joe's honestly a bit disappointed his dad never thought of him this way. But it still doesn't add up why Jing claimed it came from her dad. This whole thing's getting messier by the minute. His dad guesses maybe it was actually a personal gift from Jing herself. Joe just accepts that and wraps the call up fast, which annoys his dad a little, but he shrugs it off and decides to quietly ask around about who actually gave his son this spell. Back with Joe, he can't help but notice the Ang family seems weirdly invested in his dad. And he's still stuck on why Jing even challenged him at school to begin with. He nearly missed the exam entirely thanks to his stepbrother, Inspector Ang, and now she's just handing him a rare chi spell out of nowhere. None of it adds up. So instead of chasing answers, he decides to just focus on mastering the spell itself. As he drifts back towards sleep, his heart starts racing with the same creeping unease. And there they are again, those same demonic hands reaching straight for him. The hands close around his throat, panic sets in, and he snaps awake drenched in sweat. 2 nights of this nightmare in a row, and he's now fully convinced Jin Dioxian's somehow behind it. He drags himself to the sink to freshen up, the old man's words flashing back through his mind. He eyes the little notebook, wondering if it might actually be the key to stopping these dreams, after hours buried in these bizarre notes. He finally starts piecing together the link between chi and the human body's magnetic field. But before he can dive deeper into this whole nerdy rabbit hole, his stomach roars in protest. Turns out he's been so absorbed reading that he completely forgot to eat. He gets up, grabs another bowl of instant noodles, lets out a satisfying burp, and gets right back to reading. Except now he's completely lost his place. After a moment of scratching his head, he just decides to start back over, but the second he focuses in, it's like he's reading these words for the very first time, like he's never seen them before at all. Sure, his memory's not amazing, but forgetting this fast is genuinely bizarre. So once again, he starts from the beginning, and finally gets back to the part about chi and the body's magnetic field, right when his brain randomly asks whether he actually turned off the kitchen lights. No matter how hard he thinks about it, he genuinely cannot remember whether he turned them off. Frustrated, he starts reading again, only to realize he's already forgotten everything he just went over. He takes a deep breath, locks in full focus mode, and starts squeezing every last drop of info from the notebook. But no matter how hard he focuses, one distraction and it's all gone again. Genuinely the weirdest thing that's ever happened to him, every single slip wipes out everything he's read. Still, he refuses to give up. He locks back in, deciding to just copy the whole thing into a notebook by hand. But the second pen touches paper. It's gone again. He tries snapping a photo instead, same result, the camera just refuses to capture the text. Deeply unsettled now, he wonders if simply putting the notebook away might reset things back to normal. Right then, an unknown number rings his phone. He picks up and it's Lee Cheon asking if he's picked a university yet. Turns out this idiot's been so deep in grinding that he completely blanked on today being results day. Lee Cheon asks if he wants to enroll at the same place as him. Joe asks which school that even is. Turns out Lee Cheon landed first place overall, with Joe close behind at second. With rankings like that, Lee Shuan proudly announces they're heading to Sunset College. That name rings a bell for Joe. He's heard Sunset College just discovered a brand new dimensional realm along with a fresh symbiotic pet, which makes it a hugely popular pick right now, but then panic sets in as he realizes Luoyang is basically Aang family territory and he's not exactly eager to get tangled up with his siblings again. Still, he just shrugs it off and dives back into his game. Mid-session, he's back up against that same mosquito enemy. He charges his fist with fire and hurls it straight at the pesky thing. But the mosquito dodges effortlessly and slices him clean in half. He's genuinely frustrated even after taking down the skeleton knight. This tiny bug is still kicking his butt. Never expected the silver-winged mosquito to still be giving him trouble. Its flight speed alone makes it nearly impossible to pin down. A sudden knock at the door snaps him out of it. He heads over to check who it is and swings the door open to find Lee Shuan standing right there. Pretty weird seeing him at the door this early, but Lee Shuan doesn't even wait to be invited. He just strolls right on in. Joe finally asks what the hell he's doing here, adding he still hasn't even decided about Sunset College. Lee Shuan just tosses him a book, telling him to take a look. Joe flips through it, asking what exactly he's looking at. Lee Shuan reveals it's a leaked document straight from Sunset College and tells him to look closer. Scanning through the pages, Joe watches Lee Shuan point to a sketch, explaining it's a creature from that dimensional realm shown in its raw, visceral form. He brags that this exact species recently showed up in Sunset College's newly discovered realm. Joe, honestly a little unsettled by the sheer enthusiasm, asks what's actually so special about it. Lee Shuan looks genuinely wounded by the question. He snaps back, asking if Joe even grasps the significance of a pet like this. Apparently, if Joe ever lost his heart in battle, this creature could straight up replace it, a literal second shot at life. Joe still looks completely unfazed, which drives Lee Shuan up the wall. Joe does actually get how big a deal it is, he's just not thrilled about being ambushed with all this info. Lee Shuan explains the realm falls entirely under Sunset College's jurisdiction, meaning only their own students get access. If word got out officially, top students worldwide would flood the enrollment lines, except the slots are seriously limited. That finally gets Joe's actual attention, and he agrees to enroll at Sunset College. Then Lee Shuan casually mentions there are rumors the Aang family's headed there too, which visibly rattles Joe. Lee Shuan catches the flicker of fear on his face and asks what's wrong. Joe just shrugs it off, insisting he's not scared at all. He confirms he's signing up today, and Lee Shuan tells him to pack his bags because they're driving to Luoyang in his Lamborghini. A bit later, we cut to some kind of Federation task force headquarters, where two officers are still hunting for Jin Dioxian. Pulling up security footage from Changjian Road, they spot Joe on camera and start theorizing he might be connected to Jin Dioxian somehow. Meanwhile, out on the highway with a storm brewing over the city, Joe and Lee Shuan tear down the road in the Lamborghini. Joe's genuinely enjoying the ride, though he's also stressing about how long this trip's gonna eat up, since they'll have to root around every zone near a dimensional realm. He's also stuck on how brutal the game's gotten lately, difficulties practically doubled, and grinding more might just drain his blood for nothing. He glances over at Lee Shuan sprawled out lazily in the passenger seat. Feeling drowsy, Joe starts nodding off, then jerks himself back awake fast. He's convinced that falling asleep and getting hit with sleep paralysis mid-drive would be a disaster. Still, he's got no idea why he's suddenly dizzy and running a fever. Then he remembers Jin's whole lecture about needing to be healthy if he ever wants to impress a girl. Low energy just doesn't cut it. So Joe swears he'll start gaming in moderation from now on to keep his health in check. Yeah, it's the kind of promise he makes to himself daily, right before diving straight back into another marathon session. Just thinking about Jin makes Joe's nerves flare up. He's seriously plotting that if he ever crosses paths with that old lunatic again, he's giving him a piece of his mind. Ever since that encounter, he's honestly just been feeling drained. He's determined to get payback once he's strong enough, but suddenly something feels weird. Right beside him, he digs into his pocket and pulls out the notebook the old man gave him, and the title on the cover starts glowing with energy. Before opening it, he checks on Lee Shuan, still deep in meditation and clearly not paying attention. Plus, he's bored anyway, so reading through it might kill some time. The moment he cracks it open, the words start leaping right off the page. Yellow energy starts swirling right in the center of his chest. After a while, the lost Immortal Sutra's words have completely vanished from the pages. When he finally opens his eyes, he's staring down at an empty hand, completely lost on what just happened. He wonders if it was all just a dream, but the second he shuts his eyes again, he finds himself standing dead center of some kind of enchantment circle. Then he's jolted awake again, turns out, having finished reading the entire Lost Immortal Sutra. All that gathered energy has already cultivated inside him. Checking his stats, he finds his chi spell has officially switched over to the Lost Immortal Sutra. He focuses in and a spark of light flickers to life in his palm again. Turns out bitter meditations off the table now entirely, the panels locked onto the Lost Immortal Sutra for good. Honestly, this whole power system barely explains itself, and it's giving Joe a headache just trying to keep track of it all. Joe stares at his phone, wondering what exactly this Lost Immortal Sutra even is. He also notices something huge. He's just shattered the 9-point attribute cap at mortal level. Practitioners are locked behind. Riding high off his new power, Joe actually finds himself weirdly grateful he ran into that unhinged old man, Jin Dioxian. Once the two of them finally step through the huge mansion gates, Lee Shuan tells him not to sweat the Sunset College logistics, that's his department, and suggests Joe just crash here until the semester kicks off. Guess that's rich kid privilege for you, mansions on standby wherever you go. Once they're settled in the living room, Lee Shuan grabs drinks for the two of them. Joe asks if he seriously lives here alone, no staff at all, Lee Shuan just nods. Then he hands Joe some bizarre hybrid soda that's somehow half Coke, half Pepsi. As they're chugging it down, Lee Shuan's phone suddenly rings. He steps into a call, talking for a good while. Once he hangs up, he tells Joe to just relax and make himself at home. He's got some business to handle outside. Alone now, Joe wanders around the place, eventually shrugging off his coat. He starts throwing practice punches and realizes something. A real power punch needs a big wind-up, which makes it awkward to pair with something as tight and precise as his 1-inch punch. He remembers trying it on that annoying silver-winged mosquito, only to watch the thing dodge without even trying. Clearly, he needs a different tool for that fight. That's when Skeleton Palm comes to mind, the skill he picked up earlier. He glances down at his hand, still faintly smoking, and figures a rank 1 skill probably won't cut it. Still, worth a shot the moment he swings his palm. A blade of wind rips through the air. Turns out it's fast, way faster than expected, which makes Skeleton Palm a surprisingly solid match for his 1-inch punch. So he keeps drilling it, pushing himself harder and harder until he's completely gassed. Turns out even a rank 1 chi skill burns through chi like crazy. Curious to test it live, he grabs his phone, smears some blood on it, and his avatar loads in instantly. Hilariously, he lands face first on top of a mutated ant. The thing looks furious and swings immediately, bad timing since his chi's still tanked from training. Somehow he still dodges clean, and weirdly enough his chi starts regenerating thanks to the Lost Immortal Sutra, which also gives his movement a nice speed boost, pretty solid perk. He fires off his new combo, the 1-inch Skeleton Palm, catching the ant dead on and blasting it into oblivion with one clean explosion. A system window pops up celebrating the achievement. Skeleton Palm just hit level 10 and evolved into Ash Palm. Joe's stunned, noting it now eats 5 chi points, putting it almost on par with his power punch. He's dying to test it out, but the mutated immense strength ant's way too weak to be a real benchmark. So he decides the Skeleton Knight's the real test. The second he taps that dungeon icon, his avatar drops into Gaida City. Then he remembers, since he's already cleared the Skeleton Knight once, he'll only get another crack at it by dying and respawning. So reluctantly he lets the small fry finish him off. After a lot of trial and error with his new skill, he finally cracks the Skeleton Knight's attack pattern, using his newfound speed to dodge and slip in behind it. Landing a clean Ash Palm strike from behind, one hit and the skull just shatters into pieces. A while later, a woman strides into the mansion. The second she spots Joe lounging there, her sharp voice snaps him wide awake. Startled, he bolts upright and asks who she is. She demands to know why he's here alone and where Lee Shuan's run off to. He tells her Lee Shuan's out, which immediately has her assuming he's off chasing girls or mixed up with sketchy people again. She grumbles about how he always dodges her calls. With that cryptic complaint, she turns to walk off, leaving Joe more confused than ever. And she stops dead, grabs his hand, and announces he'll do just fine as a stand-in. And with zero regard for his consent, she starts dragging him along. Turning back to him, she reminds him she's Lee Shuan's older sister, Wei Yang. Since he's her brother's friend, she wants a favor. And honestly, thinking it over, Joe supposes he and Lee Shuan are friends now. They've been trading favors back and forth enough for that. Still, he'd much rather dodge trouble entirely and just get some quality alone time with his game. Muttering this under his breath, Wei Yang asks what he's on about and he quickly waves it off as nothing. She tells him to clean himself up and dress decently. He agrees, and not long after, they roll up to Sunset College's arena district, lit up like a full-blown neon city. Parking their bike, they meet up with 2 other girls already waiting there. Wei Yang tells him he doesn't need to lift a finger, just stand there and cheer her on. He agrees and immediately buries himself back in his game, much to her visible annoyance. As the crowd thickens, someone marvels aloud that Lee Shuan's sister actually showed up, wondering why Lee Shuan himself skipped it. The guy standing with his girlfriend smugly jokes maybe he's just scared. Wei Yang cuts him off cold, saying she can handle all of them herself. Then she turns to the girl beside him, Sume, pointing out that since they took down that mutated ancient warhorse together, there's no excuse for her trying to hoard the symbiotic egg. Sume plays up the scared act, hiding behind her boyfriend, insisting she landed the finishing blow so the egg's rightfully hers. Her boyfriend jumps in, reminding everyone the deal was to settle it in combat, winner takes the egg. So she'd better hold off on the accusations. Wei Yang turns to Gu Yang, suggesting he just hand the egg over now since everyone already knows how this ends. Gu Yang, arrogant to the bone, calls her a junior and refuses to fight her personally, claiming it'd be an unfair fight. With a smug grin, he reveals he's got someone else lined up to take her out instead. Right on cue, footsteps echo through the room, snapping Wei Yang's attention toward the sound as a figure steps out of the shadows. Sophomore going by Gu Dayan, radiating an aura so heavy it makes even the once cocky Wei Yang tense up. Even Joe can feel the sheer menace rolling off this guy, enough to make the whole crowd shudder. Moments later, the two face off. Gu Dayan, bald and grinning, taunts Wei Yang to bring it on. In response, her own aura flares up. Fully committed to taking him down solo, her friend begs her to back off this monster and just surrender the egg instead. Curious, Joe asks who exactly this Gu Dayan is. The terrified girl explains he's known around school as the Devil, claiming he beat down a senior student on literally his first day. Now genuinely intrigued, Joe starts wondering if this guy's reputation is even remotely earned. He's also starting to worry for Wei Yang. Right as they're about to clash, Gu Yang taunts her again, asking if she's finally scared facing Gu Dayan. That does it. Fully provoked, she swings her leg in a massive kick. Aimed straight at his head, Gu Dayan just tilts his head slightly, letting it land harmlessly on his shoulder like a light tap. Stunned by his ridiculous durability, Wei Yang leaps back into the air, going for another brutal head kick. Gu Dayan just stands there, unbothered, barely reacting, total One-Punch Man energy. As her leg comes crashing down, he snatches it clean out of the air with his bare hand, and in a blink slams her into the ground so hard a cloud of dust and debris erupts. When it clears, she's practically embedded in the pavement. He steps toward her, making his point crystal clear: she's simply outmatched. And he's not wrong. Blood trickles from her forehead, her whole body battered. But this jerk kicks her again like trash, sending her rolling. He coldly asks if she wants to keep going. Her friends beg her to give up the egg, already conceding defeat themselves. The smug blonde girl piles on, mocking Wei Yang for her friends already tapping out, telling her to just roll over like a good dog before things get even uglier. Wei Yang struggles to rise on shaking legs. The second she tries to speak, Gu Dayan grabs her by the throat and slams her back down, tossing her around like garbage. The shockwave ripples outward as he stands tall, basking in his little victory. But his eyes go wide. Wei Yang stubbornly climbing back up, insisting she's not finished. Impressed and irritated by her refusal to quit, his gaze turns bloodshot serious. He winds up a fist and charges, but before the punch can land, Joe crashes into the fight. Their fists collide, unleashing a shockwave of pure force. Gu Dayan, genuinely intrigued that someone just tanked his hit, asks who this newcomer even is. Joe introduces himself casually, mentioning he just enrolled at Sunset College. Gu Yang chimes in, warning that future classmate or not, they won't go easy on some random hero wannabe. Wei Yang meanwhile warns Joe this fight's dangerous, he should stay out of it. But before she can finish, he scoops her up and slings her over his shoulder like a toddler, telling her she's the one who needs rest. And yeah, side note, this girl's clearly grown a foot taller than she was back in earlier chapters. Compared to how short Joe used to look, my eyes need bleach. Anyway, ignoring her protests, he carries her back to her friends, who let out a relieved sigh seeing her safe. Wei Yang, for her part, has zero idea how Joe plans on handling this monster. Once he's squared off with Gu Dayan, Joe channels his inner Shounen protagonist and suggests fighting to the death isn't exactly the classy solution here. Gu Dayan asks if he's got a better idea. Joe proposes keeping it PG, one punch, and if Gu Dayan takes fewer than 3 steps back, Joe admits defeat on the spot. Gu Dayan, annoyed at what sounds like a pointless gimmick, lets his aura flare and tells him to quit stalling and just throw the punch already. Unfazed, Joe warns him to maybe brace his teeth since this punch is going to hurt. Gu Yang, meanwhile, finds it oddly fascinating that Gu Dayan even agreed to these terms. The blonde girl starts panicking, worried there's a real chance Gu Dayan eats 3 steps or more. Her boyfriend quickly reassures her not to sweat it. He explains Gu Dayan's chi skill is porcupine armor, built from needle porcupine crystals. Not only does it turn his body rock solid, it also loads in a nasty counterattack. And with his porcupine armor already at rank 9, the last guy dumb enough to try this lost an arm for the trouble. So yeah, Joe's little plan might be criminally naive. Guess we're about to find out because he balls up his fist, and as momentum builds, the glove on his hand starts dissolving into mist. His punch lands square in Gu Dayan's gut, his face straining as the sheer force keeps snowballing until it detonates into a full-blown explosion, sending Gu Dayan skidding backward, way past his original spot. Wei Yang's jaw drops watching this unfold. Looks like the self-proclaimed devil just got dropped decisively. And that last punch hit so hard Zhou's own knuckles are smeared in blood. That's when the blonde girl starts screeching. Unable to stomach the loss, she scrambles for an excuse claiming Zhou wasn't officially part of Wei Yang's team so the win shouldn't count. Her boyfriend shuts her down with a firm slap telling her to stop whining about a fair loss, there's no denying they lost. He insists he's a man of his word, no takebacks. Passing by Zhou, he promises they'll cross paths again and he'll be ready next time. With that, the three of them clear out. The girls immediately swarm Zhou with compliments, gushing about how strong their new junior turned out to be. That's when Wei Yang calls out to him. Pointing at his bloodied hand, he waves it off, calling it a scratch, nothing to worry about as long as it stops bleeding. Then, genuinely concerned, he reminds her that her injuries are way more serious and she needs the infirmary immediately. She agrees, and true to form, he slings her over his shoulder again like she's a stuffed animal. Genuinely relieved her little brother's got a friend like this in his corner. Not long after, they're back at the mansion. And Zhou's visibly irritated, realizing exactly how long it's been since he last touched his game. Finally, he's ready to dive back in. Or so he thought. Right as he's about to boot it up, Li Xuan bursts into the mansion dramatically. At this point, Zhou's fully convinced the universe itself is conspiring against his gaming time. Li Xuan strolls over, gives him a pat, and asks if he remembers that dimensional realm creature he mentioned earlier, the one in its raw, visceral form. Turns out he wants to actually take Zhou there. Zhou points out that's weird since school hasn't even started, they shouldn't have access yet. Li Xuan just smirks, confidently assuring him that getting them in is basically effortless for a guy like him. But Zhou's clearly more invested in his stat screen than in whatever Li Xuan's saying, still zoned into his game as Li Xuan gets more and more annoyed at being ignored. Zhou fakes attentiveness, which somehow just makes it worse. Giving up, Li Xuan walks off, warning him to get to bed early since they're heading out first thing. Zhou agrees on autopilot, still clearly not fully listening. Eyes glued to his phone, he eventually calls out to Li Xuan. When Li Xuan turns back, Zhou asks what it actually takes to hatch a legendary-level symbiotic egg. Li Xuan's caught off guard by the sudden question, and asks if he's talking about the Skeleton Knight's legendary egg specifically, warning him not to do anything reckless. Explaining it takes at least a dozen points of chi just to hatch something legendary. If the hatcher's short on chi, their own vitality and flesh get devoured to cover the gap, meaning permanent injury or worse. To Zhou, that sounds like there's still a window here, so he asks if there are any exceptions. Li Xuan proudly points to himself. His invincible constitution makes him tanky enough to offset the vitality drain, letting him hatch legendary creatures even below the required level. Still, he warns that even for him, hatching one costs more chi than he can safely sustain. He tells Zhou flat out to drop the idea unless he's fine with risking his life. Back in his room, Zhou reflects that dying in-game means nothing to him. But this egg exists in real life now, which changes the math completely. Then an idea strikes since the phone generates dungeons based on real locations. He snaps a quick photo of the egg, it vanishes right out of his hand. As the system confirms it's been logged into storage, now he's got two options: hatch it or fuse it. Not totally sure what fusion even means, he taps it anyway, curiosity winning out. The next window pops up, detecting his mutated immense strength ant, quoting a 47% fusion rate and asking if he wants to proceed. Without hesitation, his chibi little avatar hands mash the yes button. And the fusion kicks off since he already knows his current chi probably can't handle hatching the Skeleton Knight's egg outright anyway. So instead, he's curious what happens when a mortal-level ant merges with a legendary tier egg. Once the process wraps up, he nervously pulls up the stats. Surprisingly, the pet's still mortal level despite fusing with a legendary egg, but it's picked up a new innate skill, Skeleton Pierce rank 10. Hoping it's finally strong enough to deal with the silver-winged mosquito, he dives into the game and, right as the mosquito swoops down, he summons his skeleton ant, commanding it to intercept. The ant fires off Skeleton Pierce, spikes erupting straight out of the ground. Aimed at the flying mosquito, hundreds of sharp spikes shoot up and still somehow it's not enough to stop the thing. Mosquito weaves clean through every spike and dives straight for Zhou, watching that critter close in. He winds up a fist for one big swing and slams straight into empty ground. Missed his window completely and his avatar gets sliced clean in half again, another loss to add to the pile. Leaving him stewing over whatever ridiculous trick this bug keeps pulling on him. The next day, Joe's noticeably on edge about his ride for the day. He double-checks with Lee Xuan if they're really doing this. Lee Xuan just grins and confirms it, revealing it's his legendary-level jade-eyed white tiger, one he apparently went through hell to hatch. The moment they both climb on, it takes off at a speed that leaves Joe practically leaking blood from the sheer velocity. He can't help but think a normal car would have been infinitely more comfortable. Once they hit the city, Lee Xuan swipes past a checkpoint scanner, and a soldier waves them straight through. They pile into an elevator that drops them deep underground. That's when Joe learns Luoyang used to be the capital of 13 ancient nations. After the original dimensional storm hit, the whole region sank and fused with some hidden underground world, earning it the nickname Underground Buddha City. When the elevator doors finally open, they're met with total chaos, crowds wandering around like it's a theme park, vendors hawking goods from makeshift stalls everywhere. Joe wonders out loud if this is genuinely a dimensional realm, since student stalls feel a little too casual for that. Lee Xuan explains the army's cordoned off the entrance for safety. It's just that the merchandise here is pretty mediocre. He proudly adds he's got an internal army exploration map. Joe's not even surprised anymore. Apparently there's nothing money can't buy this guy. As they walk, Lee Xuan mentions there's supposed to be an underground lotus pond hiding the Buddha heart lotus. Mid-stroll, Joe spots that same palm-shaped emblem again. He snaps a quick photo. And sure enough, another app pops up confirming this place doubles as an in-game dungeon too. Lee Xuan tells him to quit snapping pictures and keep up. So they keep walking, and after a good while they finally reach something jaw-dropping, a massive pond absolutely blanketed in lotus flowers. Lee Xuan explains this is the Buddha heart lotus, and apparently there's a creature whose symbiotic form is literally the lotus heart itself. Joe asks why the flowers can't just grow closer to shore, or why nobody's just swimming out to grab one. Lee Xuan explains the water's corrosive enough to dissolve flesh on contact. Anyone dumb enough to wade in comes out a skeleton. Total no-go zone. Right then, someone crashes their conversation, a guy with literal angel wings hovering midair, chiming in that the only way to reach the flowers is flying straight over the acid. Almost instantly, the flowers react to the threat, petals morphing into blade-like projectiles that shoot straight up at him. Unbothered, the winged man summons a sword and meets the attack head-on. One clean slash cuts the flower down, petals raining like blood. Joe's genuinely impressed by the display. Lee Xuan casually notes it's typical of the Luo family, famous for their swordsmanship. He adds that this guy Luo actually isn't even that strong by their standards. Despite saying that, this greedy playboy can't stop staring at those wings, clearly a little jealous, daydreaming about how incredible it'd be to own a flying symbiotic pet. He asks Joe if they should explore elsewhere instead, since there might be other creatures nearby. He mentions this whole zone's flagged by the military as an unknown danger area. Joe asks what exactly makes it dangerous. Lee Xuan pulls up his phone, showing how many soldiers have died scouting this area, not from combat but sudden organ failure. For safety's sake, he suggests they choose their next move carefully. Just as they're about to move on, the swamp starts bubbling violently. A massive lotus flower rises up, its petals covered in eerie Buddha faces. Guess they just found the exact threat they were trying to dodge. The Buddha heart lotus immediately squares up for a fight. Man in the air summons another wing, shaping it into a weapon. But the flower doesn't hesitate, firing a massive crimson beam straight at him, reducing his wing to bone in an instant, and sending the once cocky Luo plummeting into the acid below. Joe shouts a warning, certain the guy's done for the moment he hits the swamp. But somehow Luo lands on a lotus leaf. Hopping clear of the toxic water entirely, Lee Xuan figures his chi skills some kind of lightness technique, but he's still stranded far from shore. Lee Xuan turns to Joe, asking what the hell he's doing. Joe's actually dipping his symbiotic gauntlet straight into the acid. Turns out it doesn't do a thing to his weapon. The acid only eats flesh. With that confirmed, he pulls his hand back out, drops his gauntlet pet into the acid instead, and stands there, waiting. Lee Xuan asks what he's planning, and Joe simply says he's going to fish that guy out. Meanwhile, Luo's leaping frantically between lotus leaves with no solid ground left, one wrong move away from touching the acid. Then the Buddha lotus fires off another beam, and it genuinely looks like Luo's out of options. But the swamp bubbles again, and Joe's skeleton ant surfaces right on cue. Luo, startled by the new arrival, watches as the ant surges through the air, intercepting the laser dead-on. Being pure bone, it shrugs off both the acid and the beam without a scratch. Luo finally finds solid footing on the back of Joe's ant of all places. Joe then commands his skeleton ant to retreat. Its hollow eyes flicker to life as it starts marching steadily toward shore. The Buddha lotus keeps firing, but the beams do about as much damage as duct tape on a spaceship hull. The ant picks up speed and finally reaches solid ground. Standing there looking effortlessly cool, Joe watches as Luo hops down off the ant's back. Once his feet hit solid ground, Luo asks Joe's name and Joe introduces himself properly. Luo thanks him sincerely, though Joe just brushes it off as nothing. Luo insists on repaying the favor properly someday. Meanwhile, Li Xuan's completely floored by the skeleton ant, immediately demanding to know exactly what kind of pet this thing even is. Joe answers plainly, a skeleton ant. Li Xuan's seriously impressed and, even more stunned, it not only shrugs off acid but tanks the flower's attacks like nothing. He suggests sending it straight into the swamp to try and take the monster down. He's convinced the flower's guarding something valuable, so it's worth the gamble. Joe, though, has a bad feeling this isn't your average mutated Buddha heart lotus. He suspects it might be another legendary tier creature, and since this is real life now, he's not willing to risk his aunt dying for real. He calls it back immediately. Li Xuan questions why he's being so cautious, pointing out it's just a symbiotic pet and that beating the monster could pay off huge. But Joe's firm he's not gambling with his aunt's life. And with that, he starts walking off. Back at the mansion, Li Xuan's clearly sulking, annoyed they burned 2 entry passes for nothing. He's worried word of the giant lotus will spread by tomorrow and someone else will beat them to the punch. Phone in hand, Joe tells him he's heading to his room and asks for the map of underground Buddha City, figuring it might come in handy later. Li Xuan hands it over and Joe retreats happily, leaving him puzzled by how pleased he looks. Once he's alone, he smears blood on his screen, booting up the Lotus Flower Dungeon app. Inside, he's surprised to find the pond absolutely packed with Buddha Heart Lotus flowers, way denser than in real life, though the giant boss version is nowhere in sight. Shrugging it off, he just gets to work clearing the smaller ones. Back in the real world, the Buddha Heart Lotus has stirred awake again. Word's already spread thanks to Luo's story, and other players are eager to take a crack at it now. Some lackeys watch, visibly impressed as their boss summons his top-tier legendary pet, a golden-eyed hawk, to handle the flower. The cocky boss adjusts his glasses dramatically and sends the hawk swooping in to attack. Back in the game, Joe's weaving through laser fire with slick footwork, cutting down flower after flower. His skeleton ant lands the finishing blow on one, and it drops a crystal. Finally, something worth the grind after clearing so many of these things. Checking the skill crystal, he realizes he barely knows anything about the Buddha Heart Lotus's actual chi skill. Given how the flowers fight like hidden weapon specialists, he decides absorbing it is worth the risk. As the crystal's power flows into him, he notices the effect carries over into real life too. This warmth feels nothing like the sharp pain from absorbing his power punch skill. It's gentler, almost soothing, like his whole chest is being bathed in something calm and warm. A notification flashes, new skill unlocked, meditation rank 7, not exactly the combat skill he was expecting. Curious what it does, he focuses, and a blue aura wraps around him from every direction. But after a bit, he's underwhelmed. All he feels is that same warm comfort, no obvious combat power showing up. He figures even Li Xuan probably doesn't fully understand the Buddha Heart Lotus's chi skill either, which explains why he never brought it up. Back in game, Joe gets caught off guard by a surprise laser but manages to block it in the nick of time. He lights up, spotting the actual Buddha Heart Lotus boss monster, exactly the fight he was hoping for. Eagerly, he sends his skeleton ant charging in for the kill, while the flower fires back with crimson laser blasts that barely graze the ant in the air. As the flower starts sinking back into the water, Joe grins, assuming it's retreating in fear. So he orders the ant to finish it off. But right as it strikes, the flower's massive maw snaps open, rows of jagged teeth on full display, and swallows the ant whole. Joe's grin vanishes instantly, his confidence crumbling as he realizes he just walked straight into a trap. Frustrated and outplayed, he realizes without his skeleton ant, he's got no way to safely approach the swamp at all. So instead, he heads for that restricted zone Li Xuan warned him about. Figuring dying doesn't really cost him much anyway since he half-wanted a respawn regardless, he pushes forward into the forbidden area. Inside, he finds a crumbling ruin lined with flowing water and ancient Buddha statues. Climbing the stairs, he can't shake how eerie the place is, not a single monster the entire way up. Then he spots it, the restricted zone dead ahead. Turns out to be a small Buddhist temple, though small feels generous given how massive it actually looks. He takes a few steps forward, and just like that, the game abruptly ends. Kind of an anticlimactic death. Honestly, he didn't even register dying. He smears more blood on the screen and tries pushing into the temple again, but once more his avatar's body twists unnaturally. Before he can process it, the game's over. This time, he notices his organs visibly twisting right before death. It clicks. This matches exactly what Li Xuan said about those dead soldiers. No visible wounds, just total organ failure across the board. Confirms it, even the military couldn't crack this place, after failing over and over. He chucks his phone aside and crashes back into bed. The next day finally rolls around, and the first thing Joe hears is booming laughter. Turns out Li Xuan's thrilled to hear a bunch of overeager students already got wrecked trying to solo the Buddha Heart Lotus. Joe steps out asking what's got him laughing so hard this morning. Li Xuan explains that last night, a senior sent his legendary golden-eyed hawk swooping in on the Lotus and it came back completely scorched, every feather burnt to a crisp. He finds it hilarious how badly they got wrecked. Joe reminds him if they'd pushed further themselves, they'd have been the punchline instead. Li Xuan mentions the story's already blown up on the college forum, which means students from every grade will be lining up to take a crack at it now. Joe asks why the military isn't just wiping out the Lotus themselves. Li Xuan explains that while it's strong, there's plenty of firepower in the college and the military capable of handling it. The fact they haven't stepped in yet says they don't plan to. Under Federation rules, the military only intervenes past a certain danger threshold, barring special circumstances. Basically, it's their way of letting the younger generation earn their stripes and grab some resources. Right then, someone familiar knocks gently at the door. Li Xuan calls out that he's coming. Meanwhile, Joe's phone buzzes with a call from his dad. Picking up, his dad asks if he's currently in Luoyang. Joe confirms it and asks what's up. His dad explains, smiling through the phone, that his stepmother, Aying Lan, wants to treat him to dinner. Our idiot protagonist immediately starts fumbling for excuses to dodge dinner with his gorgeous stepmother. Dude, just take the win, I would have sprinted there. But right then, Li Xuan calls out that someone's at the door for him. As Joe heads toward the door, his dad mentions Jing volunteered to come pick him up and is already on her way. Meanwhile, Li Xuan's still saying there's someone waiting outside for him. A bad feeling creeps in and sure enough, it's his intense stepsister standing right there. Li Xuan's shocked realizing Joe's actually connected to the prominent Ang family and that his dad married Aying Lan. Joe quickly clarifies he's got nothing to do with the Ang family personally. It's strictly his dad's marriage, and Jing gets visibly annoyed hearing that and pouts a little. Then, irritated, she tells him the driver's already waiting outside so they'd better get moving. Joe realizes he's stuck going along with it, facepalming internally. As much as he wants to steer clear of the Ang family entirely, he just keeps getting dragged deeper in. He tells Li Xuan he's heading out and gets a casual okay sign in return. With that, Joe follows his stepsister outside, and that's when she suddenly asks why he never practiced the sun shooting spell. Joe reminds her their dad said he never gave him that spell in the first place. She flushes, sharply demanding if he's implying she tried to trick him with some random junk skill. Then, in full tsundere mode, she snaps that she's actually relieved he didn't use it since her real intention was for it to hurt him. Joe's completely lost on what her deal even is, unable to figure out why she's so worked up over this. Either way, he figures it doesn't matter now, he's already locked into the Lost Immortal Sutra and can't practice other chi spells anyway. She tells him to get in the car. Once they're settled inside their luxury ride, someone's quietly snapping photos of Joe from a distance. Turns out they're Federation agents, and they've already built an entire dossier on him. The junior agent reports to her senior that Joe graduated Gaida High School second in his class, an excellent student overall, and is currently based in Luoyang, explaining why they lost track of him back in Gaida province. The senior figures Joe probably has nothing to do with Jin Dioxian, but the junior reveals something far more interesting. His father, Zhou Lingfeng, is the man who recently married into the widowed Ang family. That stops the senior cold, demanding clarification. He finds it bizarre that Aying Lan would ever take an interest in someone like Zhou Lingfeng, wondering if he's somehow tied to the Outlanders. The junior explains that while Zhou Lingfeng did technically reach legendary level years back, he's way too old to be recruited by them. Maybe Aying Lan's just after a kept man for once. The senior pushes back, insisting Aying Lan isn't the type for that. He recalls how the Ang family spiraled into chaos after their patriarch died, with vultures circling their assets. Ang Tianzhuo was only 13 at the time, which makes him question whether someone as sharp as Aying Lan would really settle for someone incompetent. He orders the junior to bring Zhou in directly first and she agrees, while he insists this whole thing stays completely off the Ang family's radar. Cut to a sprawling mansion, Zhou stepping out of the car, visibly nervous. He's genuinely stunned by the sheer luxury of the place, spotting his dad standing beside his stepmother. His stepmother greets him warmly, saying she's been looking forward to this for ages. At the table, dinner's already served, and she encourages everyone to dig in, offering Zhou lobster, which happens to be her daughter and Jing's favorite too. And Jing nods eagerly, clearly excited for it, until her mom bursts that bubble, insisting Zhou as their guest should eat first. Naturally, and Jing is not thrilled watching her favorite dish get handed off to this so-called lunatic. She fires death glares his way with enough intensity Zhou can practically feel the heat. Her mother tells him to just ignore her, whispering that she's intentionally getting under Jing's skin as payback for how she treated him before. Joe nervously grabs a piece of lobster and shoves the fancy dish into his mouth. It's genuinely delicious, though he still can't wrap his head around why his stepmom's being like this, or why the vibe here feels so wildly different from Jing's whole attitude. The evening rolls on like that, and as Joe's about to leave, his stepmother invites him to just move in and live together as one happy family. He politely declines, saying he'll need campus housing once school starts and he's already crashing with a friend. Privately though, he's more worried his stepsister would actually murder him if he moved in. That's when she hands him a card telling him to just take it. Curious, he asks what it's for, and she explains it's access to a single dorm room at Sunset College. Apparently his dad mentioned he prefers living solo, so she arranged it without even asking first, but she hopes he'll accept it anyway. Honestly, a private dorm is exactly what he needs for uninterrupted gaming. He pockets the key card, quietly wondering how his dad even knew he wanted a single room. He thanks her, calling her madam, which she takes completely the wrong way. Running a hand through her hair, she asks if she really looks that old, insisting he can call her literally anything except madam. Apparently every woman, no matter the situation, gets touchy about their age. He heads back to Lee Xuan's mansion, and walking in, it's dead silent, meaning Lee Xuan's out again. Honestly, great news for Joe. Riding the high of a good meal, he's fully ready to sink into his game uninterrupted. He dives back in, giving it everything to clear an ant nest deep in the dungeon. Once it's done, he scores himself another symbiotic egg. Checking the stats, it's another mutated immense strength ant, this one granting an innate power punch rank 2. Not exactly thrilled, the stats are clearly worse than his last one. Right then, the silver-winged mosquito swoops in for a strike, but he ducks just in time to dodge it. Annoyed by the cheap shot, he barely gets a second to react before the mosquito's already charging back at full speed. He dodges the little pest again, staying sharp, well aware one careless moment could end this instantly. As the mosquito charges again, he takes the opening and rushes straight at it too, blocking its strike head-on. This time he barely escapes with just a graze on his cheek. Right as the mosquito ramps up speed again, it vanishes into thin air. Joe clenches his fist, gauntlet crackling with his ant's strength, unable to track it visually. He closes his eyes and locks onto its position purely by instinct right behind him. Fist cocked, he lands a brutal hit that sends the mosquito tumbling like a ragdoll. He leaps after it, unleashing Ash Palm. And as the energy builds, it detonates in a massive blast. Even after that, the mosquito's somehow still standing, so he leaps in again, unloading a full barrage of punches. Finally, after all that effort, the silver-winged mosquito goes down for good. As it dissolves, it leaves behind a symbiotic egg. Joe's face lights up instantly. Now he's got two choices. Hatch it outright or fuse it with his mutated immense strength ant egg, this time at a 20% fusion rate. Not exactly thrilled with those odds. Given the source was just an ant, a rate this low feels off compared to the skeleton knight's egg. Worried the egg could go to waste on a failed hatch, he swallows his hesitation and decides to just go for it. Nerves aside, he presses yes, and suddenly a void tears open, draining his chi in violent pulls. His heart pounds as dark red energy wraps around him, dragging up an indescribably creepy sensation. It feels like something's literally tearing his back apart. As the hatching hits its final stretch, he's on the verge of tears, coughing up blood violently, and judging by the pain, he's fairly sure he's just grown a pair of wings on his back, which would explain that specific agony. Dizziness sets in hard, partly the blood loss from farming that mosquito over and over, partly whatever real-world toll this hatching just took. Exhaustion finally wins and he collapses. His ears start ringing, but soon strings of glowing texts swirl around him, gradually pulling him back to consciousness. Groggy, he forces himself upright. Relieved the real-world pain wasn't nearly as brutal as what he felt in-game, otherwise he might not have made it. He smears blood on his phone to check the result. Bracing for the worst, half expecting the hatch failed, but to his relief, the egg hatched successfully. Eager to test it out, he summons his avatar immediately. The silver-winged mosquito materializes in front of him, and what he sees leaves him utterly gutted. Because it's just tiny, a pathetic little larva, his shocked yell echoes through the mansion as he stares down at this unimpressive critter. Checking its stats, it's classified as a silver-winged mosquito larva, technically a legendary pet. He's got zero clue what larva even implies here, but the stats look surprisingly weak for something legendary tier, especially given how terrifying it was when it was actually trying to kill him. Still, weak stats aside, the thing's honestly kind of adorable. His phone beeps suddenly, the system announcing the silver-winged mosquito is hungry and needs feeding immediately. He has no clue what this thing even eats, but hitting yes to feed it pulls up a window asking if he wants to sacrifice the skeleton ant or the mutated immense strength ant. Joe's genuinely annoyed his new pets this picky. He's not exactly eager to sacrifice either of his other pets for this. He grumbles about whoever designed this useless mosquito that apparently can't just eat regular in-game monsters. Meanwhile, the little guy just sits there drooling, cute as ever, clearly ready to devour whatever it's handed. With no better options, he reluctantly sacrifices the mutated immense strength ant's symbiotic egg. The moment he confirms it, energy swirls around the larva, satisfying its hunger completely. Once it's fed, he figures it's worth checking its symbiotic form since this baby stage clearly isn't fighting ready. As it shifts into symbiotic form, a pair of wings sprout from his avatar's back. Thrilled, he takes off, testing out actual flight for the first time. Speed alone is exhilarating, sending a rush of raw power through him. The wings grant serious agility, though they can't lift him too far off the ground. He realizes he's got great low-altitude control, but altitude itself tops out at just a few meters. Since flight's on the table now, grinding regular ants feels pointless, so he decides to push deeper into the caves. Eager to see what's further in, as he descends, more and more ants start swarming. And the tunnels keep narrowing, monsters crawling out of every crevice. Getting a bird's-eye view of the scene, he's staring down at an overwhelming swarm, with zero clue how he's supposed to fight through all of it. Then he remembers he can fly, figuring he can just zip clean over their heads. That plan does not go as smoothly as hoped. The ants band together instantly, forming a massive hand that lashes straight out at him, swarming him from every direction. Trapped dead center of the swarm, light starts bleeding out from the mass of ants. Firing off ash palm, he obliterates the entire swarm surrounding him, clearing the whole area in one blast. The impact's so violent it punches straight through the ground, sending him plummeting into some hidden chamber with nothing but a single lone boulder. Just as he starts to relax, something near that boulder catches his eye. Doesn't take long to realize he's crashed straight into an ant nest, and now the whole colony's swarming toward him. Overwhelmed by the flying horde, his avatar finally goes down, thoroughly wrecked. Rough break, he can't push the dungeon any further until his silver-winged mosquito recovers enough to fly again. His stomach growls, so he heads to the fridge only to find it completely bare. Guess there's no avoiding a food run. Stepping outside, a car quietly tails him. Inside, someone reports the target's left the house and is heading down the main street. They ask if it's time to move in. The agent, Lisa, touching up her lipstick, tells her junior it's way too crowded right now. Since their orders were to stay covert, she says she'll handle it personally. As Joe strolls down the sidewalk, she quickly positions herself right in his path, making absolutely sure she looks devastatingly gorgeous, fully intent on charming him the second he looks her way. As he keeps walking, oblivious, she ducks behind a wall, timing her move perfectly. Then she steps out and pretends to trip, collapsing dramatically. Without missing a beat, she cranks up the fake tears, calling him handsome and begging for a hand up. But Joe, in classic unbothered protagonist fashion, just strolls right past her without a glance. That absolutely wrecks her ego. The fact he didn't even acknowledge her look stings the most. She scrambles up and chases after him, ready to pull out her actual last resort. Meanwhile, Joe's lost in thought, mulling over how easy the lotus pond must be for anyone who can fly. Cracking the blood-tinged Buddha heart lotus is still very much unfinished business. Suddenly she grabs his hand, demanding to know why he's walking so fast. Confused, Joe asks who she even is. She claims she's lost and hurt herself falling, just looking for a little help. Joe pulls out his phone and dials emergency services, telling her help's on the way. She immediately panics, insisting he put the phone away and just walk her home himself. Joe, completely unfazed, says he's got dinner plans and no time to spare. Her frustration builds with every passing second. Pride thoroughly wounded, she snaps, unleashing her form and lunging at him, fully intending to knock him out and drag him off by force. A violent explosion erupts from the clash, and as the dust clears, she's standing there alone while Joe casually flies up and lands atop a nearby signboard. It doesn't take him long to place her. And sure enough, she's one of the Federation agents from that night hunting Jin Dioxyan. Guess she underestimated him. He's a lot more agile than she expected. Getting serious now, she starts summoning fire. Meanwhile, Joe's already dialed emergency services, calmly reporting he's under attack. That makes her grit her teeth. If police show up witnessing her attacking a civilian, her cover's blown, and that's the last thing she needs. So reluctantly, she backs off, warning him he's getting off easy this time. With that, she vanishes. Joe lets out a relieved sigh. Hopping back down, still stuck on why the Federation's even after him when he hasn't broken a single law. Mulling it over, it hits him. He's probably being mistaken for Jin Dioxyan's accomplice. He quickly calls up Li Xuan. When his friend picks up, he sounds genuinely thrilled Joe actually called him for once, unprompted. Joe skips the small talk, telling Li Xuan to find somewhere private. He's got something important to share. Once he's laid it all out, Li Xuan's floored, hearing he actually ran into Jin Dioxyan. He also admits he's more than a little jealous, wishing he could meet someone that legendary himself. Good call keeping the Lost Immortal Sutra out of the story. Lee Xuan would have absolutely lost his mind over that detail. Anyway, based on Joe's description, Lee Xuan's pretty confident the ones tailing him are the hyenas. He explains they're a special Federation unit that handles the stuff the government can't touch openly, ruthless, relentless, and fully willing to do whatever it takes to get results. Their reputation is exactly why everyone just calls them the hyenas. Sounds like dealing with them is going to be genuinely brutal. Joe asks if Lee Xuan can get him into college earlier than planned. Lee Xuan explains that as powerful as the hyenas are, they can't openly break the law, meaning they'll have to tread way more carefully once Joe's on Sunset College grounds. Lee Xuan agrees it's a solid plan, teasingly reminding him that Luyong's basically Aang family turf. If Joe just moved in with them, nobody on Earth would dare touch him. Joe predictably shuts that suggestion down fast, telling him the Aang family's officially off-limits as a topic. After the joke, Lee Xuan reassures him he'll get his early enrollment sorted no problem. With that, Joe ends the call and grits his teeth, clearly fed up with all this trouble piling on him. His whole frustration boils down to one simple wish: if only he were strong enough that none of this mattered. Cut to the Federation's Special Inspection Unit, where an irritated senior agent is chewing Lisa out. He's furious she blew her cover and he's dreading having to explain this mess to his own superior on the next call. Lisa apologizes immediately, owning the mistake. She badly misjudged Joe's tastes and his actual capabilities. Straightening up, she asks for one more shot to make it right, promising real results this time. The senior tells her getting to Joe now won't be nearly that simple. He tells her to review some documents, hinting this whole situation runs way deeper than she realizes. Curious and a bit thrown, she opens them. The senior explains he had his own mentor dig into Aang Lan and the Aang family's secrets. It's all laid out right there in those files. Flipping through, Lisa's stunned to learn Joe's already been enrolled early at Sunset College. What really throws her is that the slot originally belonged to Jing, so why would the Aang family hand it over to a total outsider like Joe? If you're wondering what exactly this slot even is, it's tied to something called a God-bestowed gift, and the Aang family apparently chose Joe to receive it. Can't spoil more than that, stay locked in. The senior assures her that as wild as it sounds, his source is airtight. The Aang family used their one shot to swap the candidate over to Joe. He's genuinely stunned how everything, from the notorious Jin Dioxean to the Aang family's secret machinations, keeps circling right back to Joe Wen, tangling this whole thing further by the minute. Meanwhile, completely unaware, Joe just sneezes and wonders if he's catching a cold. No idea he's officially become the pet project of some shady Federation agency that's about to make his life miserable for the rest of this story. Backpack slung over his shoulder, he looks genuinely relieved to have finally made it into the prestigious Sunset College. Checking the key card his stepmom gave him, it reads Four Seasons Garden, presumably his dorm building. After finally tracking the place down, he climbs the stairs, swipes his key card and steps into his room, and honestly it looks less like a dorm and more like a 5-star hotel suite. Let's be real though, most students just want a room good enough to binge anime and inhale junk food in peace. Anyway, this officially kicks off his new chapter as a college student. Digging through his backpack, he realizes he seriously underpacked just some clothes, basically nothing else useful. So yeah, shopping trip incoming. He pulls up the campus map, scanning for stores. While he's squinting at his phone, a girl comes down the stairs. He glances up, it's Jing. Caught off guard, he asks if she actually lives upstairs. She looks a little startled too, but doesn't bother answering. Just pouts and walks straight past him, completely ignoring his existence. As she disappears down the hall, Joe has zero clue what set her off this time, but decides not to poke that bear, playing it off like he never even saw her. Once he's outside the dorm, he checks his phone again, confused that none of the shops he expected show up. Maybe he took a wrong turn somewhere. The street's dead empty, nobody around to ask. Then, out of nowhere, a meow. He glances around, spotting someone playing with a cat nearby. Following the sound, he notices the guy's voice. Sounds oddly familiar. And of course it does, turns out it's Gu Dian, the same guy Joe knocked back in that punch bet earlier. Wild seeing this supposedly terrifying guy just melting over kittens. Genuinely shocked, Joe never imagined catching this dude in soft boy mode. He works up the nerve to call out, and instantly dead silence falls over the whole street. Gu Dian immediately drops the kittens and snaps right back into his usual menacing self, warning Joe that if word of this gets out, he's in serious trouble. Eyes practically bulging with rage, he glares Joe down, and Joe, feeling the heat, quickly claims he saw nothing and was just lost looking for shops. He adds that if Gu Dian points him the right way, he's gone immediately. That seems to satisfy him enough to back off. As he walks off, he mentions this is the old campus, telling Joe to just follow the road until he runs into some guards who can direct him properly. Gu Dian pauses one last time, shooting a final bloodshot glare, warning Joe to leave the kittens alone too. Then he's gone. Joe lingers, gently petting the kittens, reflecting on how, post-dimensional storm, humans can now bond with creatures from other realms, way more loyal and powerful than ordinary local animals. Most people don't even bother with regular pets anymore. So it's honestly kind of wild seeing someone as intimidating as Gu Dian softening up for these little guys. Back in the dorm, Joe's feeling like he's stuck in a full-blown losing streak, thoroughly annoyed at how often the game's been handing him defeat after defeat lately. He pricks his thumb for more blood, and his avatar reloads right onto those same stairs, the exact spot he keeps dying at with his insides twisted. Some invisible force seems locked between him and that little Buddhist temple, executing anyone who dares approach. Weirdly, even flying without touching the ground gets him instantly killed. No matter what he tries, death's instant the moment he crosses in, and he's genuinely run out of ideas. Being a game, there should logically be some way through. Even the skeleton knight and the mosquito, tough as they were, he eventually cracked. But this, no warning, no fight, just instant death. This isn't a boss battle anymore, it feels like a locked door needing a very specific key. Problem is, right now all he's got access to in Buddha City is the Lotus Pond, and there's nothing useful left there. Then he remembers the meditation skill he picked up and figures it's worth a shot. That chi skill from Buddha City doesn't boost attack or defense at all, it just burns chi to stay active. Activating it anyway, he starts back down the stairs. The moment he hits bottom and leaps across the ground, he actually survives. Overjoyed, he strides confidently into the small Buddhist temple, genuinely believing he's finally cracked it, except meditation's burning chi at an insane rate and he's about to pay for it. Sure enough, he dies again. Respawning his blood avatar only to get shut down again, his chi draining at lightning speed. Frustrated, he pricks his finger again, dripping blood to summon his avatar once more. This time he just sprints flat out, trying to blitz through the chi draining zone before it catches up, but his chi bar bottoms out before he clears it. Undeterred, he pricks his finger again, letting the blood drop. Realizing his base speed just isn't cutting it, he considers switching to his mosquito's wings instead, feeling pretty smug that this time he's finally cracked the code. That confidence evaporates instantly, his chi drains even faster with the wings active. Sure, they're fast, but they burn chi at a brutal rate. Especially stacked with meditation running too, he grudgingly admits rank 7 meditation just isn't enough to power through this zone. Higher tier skills are the only real answer. He's about to head back to the Lotus Pond hunting for clues when his phone rings. It's Li Shuwen on the line. He casually tells Joe to swing by the Lotus Pond and catch the show. Curious, Joe asks what's so entertaining about it. Li Shuwen just stares straight ahead, where Joe's stepsister is squaring off against some gorilla-built guy, cryptically saying he'll get it once he arrives. Whispers ripple through the crowd. Apparently she already hit legendary level before even enrolling, and the guy facing her down is Yang Liu, a 3rd stage legendary. Word is he swore he'd kill the Buddha Heart Lotus as some kind of gift for her. She glances at the flower with total swagger, telling him not to waste his breath on something as basic as a plant. Confident he's all talk, she doubts he can even scratch the blood-striped Buddha Heart Lotus. That dismissal absolutely wrecks Yang Liu's ego. Meanwhile, Li Shuwen's impressed just learning the flower's official name, blood-striped Buddha Heart Lotus, confirming she's clearly done her homework on this thing. Mayan too, one of the earlier lackeys, points out Yang Liu's just showing off to impress the Yang family. Li Shuwen notes the Yang family's nothing compared to the Ang family. Heck, the Yang family's whole business practically depends on the Ang family. No way in Jing's interested in someone like Yang Liu. Mayan too agrees, adding the only guy actually worthy of her is Li Shuwen himself, which the playboy instantly shuts down, insisting he's not into Jing at all. Not his style to go after his best friend's sister. That friend obviously being Joe, right as Joe strolls into the scene. He glances at his stepsister and asks Li Shuwen if he seriously dragged him here just to watch his sister flex. The playboy just smirks, saying that's not even the main event. He points out she's got herself an admirer, and as her brother, he's entitled to size up whoever's fallen for her. Meanwhile, Yang Liu's practically vibrating with rage after getting publicly shut down. Convinced that taking down the lotus will force her to eat her words, he plans to shove his gift right in her face anyway. She just brushes off the whole promise, telling him to quit embarrassing himself. That's the final straw. Yang Liu summons his pets and 2 silver-white eagles materialize in the sky. Mayan 2's floored watching 2 legendary tier silver-eyed eagles appear at once. Yang Liu barks a command, and both birds dive straight for the lotus. The flower isn't backing down either, firing off a crimson laser that slams dead center into one eagle. Yang Liu just laughs it off, insisting cheap tricks like that can't slow his pets down, as the eagles shrug off the crimson blast. They counterstrike the flower, leaving Mayan 2 stunned all over again. Those feathers are apparently immune to the blood corrosion entirely. Guess that's what legendary tier buys you. At this point, he's genuinely starting to think the Buddha Heart Lotus might actually go down for good. But Joe cuts in, calmly stating this fight is nowhere near as simple as it looks. As the eagles keep clawing at the tough petals, the lotus starts stirring awake for real. The petals curl inward, forcing both eagles into a hasty retreat as the flower fixes them with a cold, menacing glare. Sending a chill straight down Yang Liu's spine, he's finally realizing he's bitten off way more than he can chew. Li Xuan explains that while most lotus-type creatures are pushovers, this particular species is an entirely different beast. Still, this cocky gorilla isn't backing off. He morphs his eagles into blazing fire forms, practically Phoenix reborn. Wreathed in flame, they rocket toward the lotus at blinding speed, unleashing their golden claw technique. But the flower snaps up a crimson shield just in time, blocking the strike cold before any real damage lands. Yang Liu stunned the flowers, even packing a defensive chi skill, but he quickly notices the shield only guards its immediate surroundings, so he decides to keep it pinned down with his phoenixes. While sending his second eagle swooping in from above, where the shield can't reach, Joe instantly clocks what's about to happen. This is exactly the trap that devoured him from above back in game. He shouts a warning that it's a trap, but before Yang Liu can even process it, his eagle's already right at the lotus's mouth. The gaping jaw, lined with jagged teeth, snaps open in a split second and swallows the fiery eagle whole. The lotus lets out a satisfied burp, clearly enjoying its roasted bird snack. The crowd stunned into silence watching this horror unfold, and Yang Liu just lost a precious eagle in the blink of an eye. Even he can barely process what just happened. He recalls his last remaining eagle immediately, left with nothing but clenched teeth and simmering frustration. That's when he stalks over toward Joe, puffing up like he owns the place. With his usual arrogant swagger, he demands to know how Joe called the trap. Obviously, Joe can't just admit he's already fought this monster in-game. Thankfully, Mayan 2 jumps in, pointing out that of course Joe saw it coming. He's ranked second in Gaida Province's real combat test after all. Yang Liu laughs it off dismissively, which gets under Mayan 2's skin. He snaps back, asking what's so funny and whether Yang Liu feels even a shred of regret losing that eagle. If it were him, he'd have crawled into a hole out of pure embarrassment. That gets Yang Liu genuinely fuming, demanding to watch how the so-called runner-up plans to take down the lotus himself. Mayan 2 confidently claims Joe will make it look effortless, unlike Yang Liu, who's already made a fool of himself in front of everyone. Joe just stays quiet, honestly not sure what to even say here. That's when his stepsister storms over, getting right in his face, demanding to know if he can genuinely take down the blood-striped Buddha Heart Lotus. Once again, Joe's caught speechless. Truth is, he's never actually cleared the blood-striped version in-game before. And this lotus is already pulling moves he's never even seen there, with her sharp glare drilling into him. He refuses to look like a coward by admitting he can't handle it, so he just grits his teeth in silence. Meanwhile, the gorilla starts snickering, calling Joe out for looking scared, saying all he's actually good for is talking big. That's when Li Xuan steps in, announcing he wants to team up with Joe to take down this thing. Yang Liu's genuinely thrown, didn't expect the notorious playboy of the Li family to actually get involved. Still, he starts grinning, convinced that if legendary silver-eyed eagles couldn't cut it, these two are dreaming if they think they've got a shot. He agrees anyway, saying he can't wait to watch their plan unfold. A little while later, the crowd gathers off to one side while Joe and his two allies stand apart. Li Xuan's clearly irritated that Mayan 2 goaded them straight into this fight, but Joe reminds him that pinching cheeks over it won't help now. They already agreed, so it's time to strategize. Li Xuan's actually feeling decent about their odds, even though his blood avatar alone wasn't enough last time. With all three working together, especially with his two legendary pets in play, this could go very differently. Only real snag is figuring out how they even get to the lotus. Joe admits his skeleton ant can't cover all three of them mid-fight solo, and his mosquito's still too weak to reliably carry anyone through the air. That's when Mayan 2 steps up, slipping on a mask and telling them to leave this part to him. He summons his pet, and out of nowhere a massive turtle drops from the sky, crashing into the acid. As it settles, it forms a solid platform right on its shell, giving them safe footing above the acid. Li Xuan's genuinely surprised Mayan 2's packing a mortal-level symbiotic pet too. He'd assumed Joe was the only one holding pets on that tier. Either way, the three climb onto the turtle's back and head straight for the flower. Mayan 2 tells them to go engage the twisted flower directly while he keeps his dragon-scale turtle in support from the sidelines. With that, everyone unleashes their pets. Joe leaps into the air, summons his skeleton ant, and hops onto its back. Lee Xuan doesn't hold back either, transforming right there, sending the crowd absolutely wild. Watching the infamous third son of the Lee family reveal his own legendary creature. He straps on dark armor, ready to dive into full hack-and-slash mode. Meanwhile, the cocky gorilla's steaming, watching these three actually stand a real shot at winning. His stepsister watches closely, not missing a beat. Meanwhile, the armored playboy is visibly struggling to keep balance on his tiger. So Joe tells Mayan too to watch him closely since the tiger's not exactly graceful mid-flight. Nobody wants their friend face-planting into acid. Mayan too agrees and both boys charge the flower. The lotus fires crimson projectiles at the group and Joe orders his ant to block. The skeleton ant surges upward and tanks the crimson barrage head-on, shielding the team completely. That's when Lee Xuan spots his opening and slashes at the monster. The flower retaliates with more of that liquid crimson attack. But Joe's slash cuts straight through it, landing a clean hit right on the flower's face. Meanwhile, his ant roars, spikes tearing up from the ground below. Slamming directly into the flower, the petal jerk stays completely unbothered, wiping the spikes out with that crimson attack like they're nothing more than garden weeds. Recognizing the pattern, Joe suspects it's baiting them into striking from above again. But Lee Xuan cuts in, insisting they don't need to bait it. He's confident he can take this thing head-on. Charging his sword, he starts phasing out of visibility entirely. Meanwhile, the monster's not just standing around either. It lets out a massive roar, a tornado swirling to life inside its mouth. The crushing air pressure makes closing the distance brutal, but Lee Xuan pushes through anyway. Once his sword's fully charged, he drops down on the monster like a literal meteor, that single strike gutting the lotus from the inside out. Just as the petals catch fire and start burning down, something crouched inside spits out a wad of black sludge aimed right at the exhausted playboy midair and completely defenseless. Right before impact, Joe unleashes his power punch, flames erupt, obliterating the sludge completely. Joe threw the punch from range, and the leftover blast shatters the tiger Lee Xuan was riding. Joe quickly tells Mayan Tu to catch him while he handles the ugly toad himself. The lackey agrees immediately. Joe dives forward, leaping off his ant with a fire-charged punch primed and ready. The toad spits more sludge, but Joe sidesteps it effortlessly. By now, the toad senses it's cooked, bracing for the impact. Joe's punch detonates in a massive blast. And once the flames clear, all that's left of the toad is a splatter of blood. Suddenly, Joe notices Lee Xuan plummeting toward the acid, and Joe's pretty sure Mayan Tu's letting him fall on purpose. Which becomes obvious the second Mayan Tu smugly says Lee Xuan's earned a dip in the acid. Meanwhile, his stepsister tenses, ready to step in if needed. But before she can, Joe swoops in and catches his friend just in time, yanking him clear of the acid. The playboy's mortified he had to be saved yet again. Once they land on the turtle's shell, Mayan Tu starts yelling at Joe, accusing him of hiding yet another symbiotic pet up his sleeve. Joe just sighs, disappointed, pointing out Mayan Tu had one job and totally blew it. That's when Lee Xuan smacks Mayan Tu clean across the face, calling him a terrible actor. The slap sends Mayan Tu stumbling, demanding to know why he's suddenly being called a traitor. That one slap wrecks his composure and he finally admits Lee Xuan can't beat his brother, Lee Mobai. The guy's already bought off everyone in the area. Then, in one last dirty move, Mayan Tu shatters the dragon scale platform they're all standing on. He announces flatly that if he can't take down the playboy alone, he'll gladly drag everyone else into the acid with him. As the debris starts sinking, things look bleak for both boys. But right on cue, they're both scooped up by some mysterious protective barrier before they hit the acid. And the one behind the save, none other than Joe's stepsister. Cut to the investigation office at Sunset College, where both boys get grilled by an officer. After hearing everything out, he simply tells them to head home. Once outside, Lee Xuan looks completely deflated, wondering aloud why everyone's suddenly gunning for him. That's when Joe finally asks why his brothers got such a grudge against him, going to these lengths to see him dead. Lee Xuan explains he and Lee Mobai have basically been strangers ever since their eldest brother passed. While Mobai's grinding away running the family business alongside their dad, Lee Xuan's just been coasting through life. Joe presses further, asking why Mobai's so obsessed with killing him if it's not about money or power. Lee Xuan says it's nothing that petty. Joe pushes for details and Lee Xuan suggests they find somewhere private there could be eyes and ears anywhere. A bit later, we're back in Joe's dorm, littered with soda cans everywhere. Joe's clearly not thrilled about the mess his friend's leaving behind. Lee Xuan kicks things off asking if Joe knows how creature tiers actually work. Mortal, legendary, epic, and mythical, with the power gap between each tier only getting bigger. Eventually, the gap between mortal and mythical gets so absurd that mortal tier fighters are basically ants compared to mythical creatures. So he asks Joe how mortal-tier humans ever managed to kill the very first mythical creature, given that insane power gap. Joe answers straightforwardly, citing what's already documented. After 3 days and nights of fighting, the Federation's 6 original epic-level heroes finally brought it down. Lee Xuan dismisses that as textbook fluff, pointing out that even 100 epic heroes wouldn't have been enough, let alone 6. The real reason they won was because humanity already had mythical symbiotic pets backing them up. Joe's floored, unable to make sense of it. How could they possibly get mythical pets before even beating a mythical creature, when eggs normally only drop after a kill? Li Xuan explains this is what's called a god-bestowed gift. Someone bestowed the power to slay mythical creatures directly onto the 6 heroes. Delivered in the form of a mythical creature's larva, Joe brushes it off as some unfounded legend. But Li Xuan insists the Federation actually runs a top-secret department dedicated to covering up and managing everything the 6 heroes did. Barely anyone knows it exists. That department's also responsible for selecting individuals to receive god-bestowed gifts, exactly like those original heroes. Joe genuinely starts entertaining the idea this might be legit, though he's still not clear why Li Xuan's telling him all this. Then it clicks, he asks point-blank if it's true, and Li Xuan confirms it proudly, revealing his father named him the family's first candidate to receive a god-bestowed gift, and the only way Li Mobai can steal that eligibility is by killing Li Xuan outright. Cut to the next morning, Li Xuan still crashed out asleep. While Joe's scrolling his phone, mulling over last night's warning to stay careful. He's already messed up Mobai's plans multiple times by saving Li Xuan, which likely paints a target on Joe's back too. All of this just fuels Joe's drive to grind harder and get stronger fast. Deep in his game, a system window pops up, warning that the silver-winged mosquito's starving again. Joe grumbles at the screen, half serious. Does this thing know how expensive symbiotic eggs even are? Still, he accepts he's got no choice but to keep feeding it if he wants it to grow. The only way to farm eggs is grinding monsters, who at this point practically flinch on sight seeing Joe approach with those bloodshot eyes. Back at college, a crowd of students gathers to rewatch yesterday's footage of the group taking down the monster with insane ease. Everyone's blown away by Li Xuan's legendary pets, especially since word is he's only supposed to be at mortal level. Joe's supporting role earns respect too, with plenty agreeing they'd have finished off the core entirely if their third teammate hadn't sold them out. The girls are buzzing about the fight too, especially fixated on how good Li Xuan looked mid-battle. They turn to Wei Yang, Li Xuan's sister, asking if she can set up a meetup with her brother sometime. But Wei Yang's a little too busy watching her actual crush, Joe, obviously replaying his clip with a smile she's clearly enjoying way too much. Meanwhile, over at the Federal Investigation Unit, the whole team's glued to Joe's battle footage. Genuinely stunned watching him dodge the poison toad's attack and one-shot it clean. Lisa points out that pure physical skill alone can't explain a move like that. She figures he's running some top-tier chi spell, but according to records, all he's got logged is bitter meditation, which is nowhere near that caliber. The senior agent agrees, adding another wrinkle to the mystery. He recalls catching a glimpse of Joe's abilities back in Gaida province. His skin had that faint jade sheen typical of bitter meditation practitioners. Now that trait's completely vanished, hinting he's dropped the technique entirely. Lisa asks if the senior thinks Joe abandoned years of dedicated training. And if so, who handed him something powerful enough to justify ditching it? The senior pauses, then names the 2 suspects on his mind, the Ang family, or more likely, Jin Dioxian. And yeah, we already know it's Jin Dioxian who handed Joe the Lost Immortal Sutra. The old man can actually feel his own technique weakening, a sign Joe's awakening real power. Back at HQ, the senior notes Joe recently met his stepmother, Aying Lan, but there simply wasn't enough time for her to teach him a new spell he could have mastered this fast. Ruling out the Ang family, that leaves Jin Dioxian as the only real suspect. The senior orders Lisa to formally charge Joe as an accomplice of Jin Dioxian and push for a cross-district arrest warrant. Finally time to bring him in for a real face-to-face interrogation. Lisa agrees instantly. Pulling up the system, she opens Joe's full profile, clearly relishing the idea of finally catching him and making him sweat. She asks if the Ang family will step in to shield him once he's back on campus. The senior assures her that once the warrant's approved, federal law leaves the Ang family with 0 grounds to protect him. Plus, given how both Ang Tianzhuo and Jing have already been targeting him, it's obvious neither wants Joe competing for the god-bestowed gift. Maybe protecting him was never on their agenda to begin with. Cut back to Joe's stepsister, hesitating outside his door before finally reaching Joe's dorm. She lingers, lost in memory, recalling once asking her mom why she picked Joe as her God-bestowed gift candidate. She admits he's talented, sure, but talent alone doesn't guarantee results, and besides, the guy's a gaming addict glued to his phone every free second. That's when her gorgeous, sharp-featured mother calmly states her decision's already final and arguing won't change a thing. Standing there now that memory still eats at Jing, she's determined to prove to her mom she's leagues better than him. Finally, she decides to knock, but before she can, Joe opens the door himself, still glued to his game. It takes him a second to even register his stepsister's actually standing there. The arrogant stepsister announces the sun-shooting spell she gave him is completely legit, telling him to practice it freely. Joe's just confused why she's here bragging rights. In his head, he already knows he couldn't learn it anyway, locked into the lost immortal sutra. She asks if he's still doubting her, and if so, tells him to check the drive with their dad who'll confirm it. Joe just sighs finally. Asking why she even gave it to him in the first place, she admits it was purely to prove she's better than him. Then she asks if losing to her back in high school ever bothered him. Joe just flashes a warm smile, says not really, honestly, he kind of respects her for it. That annoys her even more, insisting he humiliated in public should want revenge. She adds she saw his skills at the Lotus Pond firsthand and figures 3 months of sun-shooting practice would get him to legendary. She'll let him train it, but until then, she's challenging him again. Joe simply asks if he can just concede right now. That only irritates her further. She insists he has to fight her properly. Absolutely fuming, she genuinely can't wrap her head around why her mom picked this guy. Eventually she withdraws, deciding to head back to her own dorm, offering Joe some chi crystals as a parting prize, telling him to grab whatever he wants since she won't be holding back next time. Joe just stands there quietly, reflecting on how she's a genuine Federation-recognized prodigy, legendary level at just 13. Makes zero sense why she's this fixated on fighting him, though clearly he's still totally clueless about being the Aang family's actual God-bestowed gift candidate. Either way, he grabs the trash bags Li Xuan left scattered last night, tosses them out and dives right back into his game. Deep in the action, it looks like he's finally cleared the Buddha Heart Lotus for good, and his skeleton ants already snagged the Lotus's symbiotic egg. He grabs it eagerly, opening the stats tab with a nervous flutter. Li Xuan had mentioned the Buddha Heart Lotus's symbiotic core is genuinely useful. Meanwhile, his silver-winged mosquito larva's starving again, on the verge of vanishing if it doesn't eat soon. With a defeated sigh, he decides to feed it first. The second he confirms, the larva starts glowing, bathed in a burst of bright light mid-evolution. Joe's hoping for a growth spurt. Instead, disappointingly, the larva stays exactly the same tiny size. He's already fed it 2 ordinary symbiotic eggs and it's still stuck as a larva. Maybe regular eggs just aren't cutting it for a legendary tier creature. Legendary eggs are already brutal to farm, and this is shaping up to be a serious grind. Even hammering the skeleton knight repeatedly, the drop rate's so low it'll take forever. He slumps back on his bed, thoroughly defeated. He's still got his sister breathing down his neck, and if he doesn't hit legendary within 3 months, he's in deep trouble. Then it hits him, the lost immortal sutras locked him out of ever practicing the sun-shooting spell at all. He's still completely in the dark about how his sutra even progresses further. As he's spiraling over his rough luck, a knock interrupts him. Opening the door, he finds Gao Yang standing there. Joe asks what's up, and Gao Yang says he's here to apologize. That immediately raises red flags for Joe. Gao Yang keeps rambling, insisting there's no beef between them and he genuinely wants to bury the hatchet. He just wants to let bygones be bygones and extends a hand as a first step toward friendship. Joe accepts the gesture and starts closing the door, mentioning he's mid-game. But Gao Yang stops him. There's actually one more thing. He leads Joe somewhere and introduces him to his friend, Hu Heifeng, announcing he's brought Joe along. Heifeng, the newcomer, just smiles, thanking Gao Yang for the introduction. Suddenly he moves with such insane speed Joe can barely track him, materializing right in front of him as some kind of monstrous form. But Joe stays completely unbothered, telling Heifeng if he really wants a fight, they can settle it properly in the arena, no need to trash the place here. Heifeng snaps his fingers and the dark creature dissolves instantly. He compliments Joe on staying so unnervingly calm and sharp under pressure. As the dark form fades completely, Heifeng steps forward properly, flanked by 2 lackeys, apologizing first for the earlier stunt and introducing himself as Hu Heifeng. Wasting no time, he cuts straight to it, inviting Joe to join their team for a real crack at the blood-striped Buddha Heart Lotus. Looks like the core wasn't fully destroyed last time, which is why it's still kicking. Joe asks why he's being singled out for this, and Heifeng explains he studied the footage from their earlier fight closely. Sure, Li Xuan performed brilliantly, but it was Joe's command and read on the situation that actually caught his attention. He points out the academy's got fighters stronger than Li Xuan easily. But what made that fight actually work was Zhou's read on the battlefield, anticipating Li Xuan's positioning and timing the Toad's takedown perfectly. Heifeng adds that if their third teammate hadn't sold them out, they'd have won outright. He reassures Zhou he won't be jumping into the Lotus Pond mess personally, just calling shots and managing pets from the sidelines. Even after the whole pitch, Zhou still turns it down flat, way more focused on solving the boss himself than babysitting a squad of cocky seniors. He's already close to cracking it solo. Gao Yang urges him to reconsider, pointing out Heifeng and his crew are already legendary tier within the academy, teaming up could mean a fast, easy win. But Zhou refuses again, thoroughly irritating Gao Yang, who privately thinks he'd never bother talking to this annoying kid if it weren't for Heifeng. Right then, Heifeng stops Zhou, telling him there's no need to shut it down so fast. He asks what Zhou actually wants, promising they can work something out if it's reasonable. Both thugs tense up as Zhou casually drops that he wants a legendary symbiotic egg. Gao Yang's furious at the sheer audacity of the demand, but despite his glare, Zhou holds firm, happily stating he'll join the team the second they hand over a legendary egg. Visibly seething, Gao Yang grabs Zhou by the collar, warning him not to push his luck. His role here is minor, just directing pets, hardly worth a legendary egg. Li Xuan cuts in, telling Gao Yang to chill. It's entirely their call whether to meet the price or walk away, no hard feelings either way. Right then, Heifeng steps in, asking if Zhou has anything specific in mind for the egg. Zhou shrugs, saying nothing particular, though privately all he actually wants is something to feed his pet. Heifeng tosses an egg his way, asking if that'll work. Zhou's clearly satisfied, no further demands, a free legendary egg is plenty for what he needs. Heifeng offers a fist bump to seal it, and Zhou reciprocates instantly, locking in the deal. As they part ways, Gao Yang turns to his friend, questioning how he handed over a flaming toxic bee's egg that easily, still baffled by the level of trust. Heifeng reminds him that after studying the battle footage, Zhou carried himself like he'd genuinely fought that Lotus before. Gao Yang's a little rattled hearing that, but Heifeng just walks off, telling him not to sweat it. The egg's just insurance in case things go sideways. Back in his room, Zhou summons his winged mosquito. The moment it appears, he flashes the legendary egg he scored, offering it up as dinner. Without hesitation, he drops the egg straight into its mouth, and instantly a swirling mass of fire and aura wraps around it as it starts evolving. Once the transformation settles, the mosquito emerges sporting sharp green eyes, a needle-thin stinger, and a body considerably bigger than before. Zhou finds it genuinely fascinating that this evolution's blending traits from the flaming toxic bee, probably since both are insect type. Checking the stats confirms it. The larva tag's finally gone, it's officially matured. What really floors him is how much the numbers jumped, practically pushing past standard legendary tier limits. On top of that, it's picked up a new skill, Magic Light Sting, firing a fast, piercing energy needle capable of skewering targets clean through. Zhou can't help but grin at his freshly upgraded pet, feeling genuinely confident it can finally take down the blood-striped Buddha Heart Lotus for real. He drips more blood onto his screen, summoning his blood avatar alongside his newly evolved mosquito. And immediately, without hesitation, send the mosquito charging straight at the Lotus. The flower isn't taking this lying down, firing off its crimson attack to knock the mosquito out of the sky, but it zips through the blast at blinding speed. Practically invisible. Closing in fast, it comes within inches of piercing the flower's eye with its claw, but at the last second the sneaky thing dives underwater, leaving the mosquito scanning for it. Then suddenly, it spots something surfacing from below. The Lotus tries an underground sneak attack, but the mosquito dodges the ambush and darts clear. Refocusing, it turns back on the flower, ramping up its dive speed with a silver wing attack aimed dead center. The Lotus throws up its crimson defense again, but the mosquito's not done yet. With a sharp burst of speed, it loops back around, slicing straight through the crimson shield with its razor-edged wings. Clearly rattled, the flower finally cracks open, revealing the toad hiding inside just like the real-world fight. Right on cue, it starts hurling sticky black sludge at the mosquito, which dodges every blob with ease before firing back with its sting attack. The crimson needle slams straight into the toad, popping it like a balloon on impact. The follow-up sting shatters the Lotus's core completely, triggering a massive explosion as the smoke starts clearing. The mosquito swoops in and grabs the crystal right out of the wreckage. Zhou watches, still half in disbelief at just how strong his mosquitoes actually become. His pet returns triumphantly, spitting out the demonic crystal of the Lotus. Zhou scoops up the red crystal instantly, betting this particular chi skill might just be the key to finally cracking that small Buddhist temple. He absorbs it. And this time, the effects hit him for real in the physical world too. a searing heat like he's being slowly roasted alive. He grits through it though, refusing to flinch. Moments later, the system confirms it. The blood-striped Buddha Heart Lotus's demonic crystal absorbed successfully, upgrading his old meditation skill into something far stronger, blood meditation. Once it's done, Joe's whole body's still visibly steaming. He wrings out his soaked shirt, water dripping everywhere, then immediately tests out his new blood meditation skill. As expected, it burns chi way slower than regular meditation, lasting a solid half hour. He's feeling genuinely confident this'll finally get him through the small Buddhist temple. Without wasting a second, he dives back into the game, finally clearing those stairs in underground Buddha City with renewed energy. No signs of fatigue this time. He's thrilled this upgraded skill is actually letting him resist the zone's pressure properly. After a few minutes of running, he finally reaches the temple's main entrance, nerves creeping in since he's still got no idea what's waiting inside. He pushes forward anyway. Looking around, he's genuinely weirded out, not a single dimensional creature in sight. Then he spots a stone slab across the way, engraved with text titled The Short Sutra on Perfect Wisdom. That name rings a bell. The Great Sutra on Perfect Wisdom is legendary, supposedly unearthed by a Buddhist monk during the original dimensional storms, ranked as one of the 2 greatest chi arts in Buddhist tradition. He figures this shorter version must be a spell too. The moment he tries reading the inscription, the words start twisting and warping. A brutal headache slams into him, like something scrambling his brain from the inside. He clutches his head in agony, and suddenly something starts glowing bright in the center of his avatar's chest. Instantly, the crushing pressure disappears, and he notices the lost Immortal Sutra's flow has visibly slowed down. The discomfort's fully gone, and reading the inscription's suddenly manageable. Right as he starts making sense of it, he notices his chi bar draining, and he hasn't even entered the temple hall proper yet. So he just runs, no hesitation. Once he's standing right outside the small Buddhist temple, he pushes the door open and spots a massive statue with 3 separate Buddha faces. Not even sure a 3-faced Buddha's an actual thing, but the moment he steps inside, his avatar starts twisting. And just like that, game over, dead again, 0 warning, 0 clear cause. Guess he's got more digging to do before cracking the rules of this place. At least this whole grind's teaching him a little respect for what those old-time cultivators risked to earn their power, genuinely life-on-the-line stuff. Even blood meditation couldn't get him through the temple hall. But the total absence of monsters strongly suggests entry hinges entirely on that stone tablet, probably some kind of chi spell. Problem is, since he's already locked into the Lost Immortal Sutra, he can't actually practice a second one. Still, he decides to just memorize the text anyway. Surprisingly, it's sticking way easier than the Lost Immortal Sutra ever did. Halfway through memorizing, he decides to bail from the temple grounds before his chi runs dry, planning to return once it's refilled. He spends the whole day like that, yawning, grinding away in-game, chasing that last bit of memorization. By the end of it, he's finally got the entire sutra memorized. Suddenly, light starts radiating off him and he's completely blindsided by this new form of chi now circulating through his core. Only explanation, this must be the effect of that short sutra on perfect wisdom he just committed to memory. Checking his real-world hand, he can actually feel this new chi spell active despite never formally practicing it. It's just automatically flowing through him based purely on memory. He's honestly baffled. Way too drained to unpack the mystery right now. Deciding sleep comes first, he figures he'll sort it out once he's rested. Right as he starts drifting off, strange patterns start surfacing across his sculpted body. And yeah, side note, this lazy bum does absolutely nothing but game, yet somehow has one of the best physiques around. Kind of infuriating, honestly. If I could get Jack just recapping Manhwa, I'd be unstoppable. Anyway, come morning, he heads for the shower. As water hits his skin, he lets out a yelp, his skin's actually peeling. Stepping out of the shower, he wonders if this is some side effect of that short sutra circulating through him. Either way, he grabs his phone to check his stats. To his shock, the Lost Immortal Sutra is still fully intact, untouched. Instead, his constitution stat just smashed past its cap of 10, hitting 11. On top of that, he can genuinely feel the short sutra flowing through him too. Then it hits him, completely blowing his mind. He can actually cycle both his new chi and the Lost Immortal Sutra simultaneously, meaning he's now mastered 2 chi spells at once. That's a massive deal since most chi spells are fundamentally incompatible and running 2 side by side is notoriously difficult. The more advanced and complex the spells get, the harder they are to coexist. Right then his phone rings, it's Heifeng, reminding him the group's already at the lotus pond ready to face the flower and asking where the heck he is. Turns out Joe got so absorbed in grinding he completely forgot the promise he made. Shortly after, he arrives at the pond, finding the squad already mid-fight chipping away at the Lotus core. With Joe now calling the shots and directing everyone flawlessly. The team finally blows apart the goo-covered blob. He immediately orders everyone to fall back at least 20 meters. The beast starts retreating, but that's when one cocky guy, apparently thinking with something other than his brain, insists they should push for the kill instead of pulling back. Ignoring orders, he takes matters into his own hands, commanding his flying beasts to unleash their blood blade barrage. The birds unload their feathers, which wreck the whole area in a chain reaction. A massive explosion rips through and one bird gets caught square in the blast, incinerated instantly. The cocky guy goes dead silent after that blunder. Joe makes it crystal clear he's not covering the loss since the idiot flat out ignored his call. The guy apologizes on the spot, admitting fault, agreeing he's got no business asking for compensation. With the Lotus finally reduced to dust and debris, we cut to two professors standing near the tunnel entrance. One, a blonde teacher, admits she's a little jealous someone like Joe's about to be her student. The bespectacled woman beside her notes Joe seemed to sense the Lotus was about to detonate before it even happened. The Western District's military needed to sacrifice 5 legendary pets just to clear this thing. The blonde speculates that his Aang family ties probably fed him intel beforehand. The other teacher points out that Jing and her brother clearly don't like Joe much. They wouldn't just hand over intel for no reason. That only deepens her curiosity about him. Back in game, deep inside the Lotus Pond dungeon, the toad's active again, hurling black sludge everywhere. Joe's mosquito weaves through it effortlessly, finishing the toad off with a clean wing strike. For the kill shot, it fires off magic light sting. And just like before, it detonates in a massive blast. Joe's genuinely pleased with the flower's attack patterns memorized and his mosquito this strong. The boss is basically routine at this point. Right then, his phone buzzes with a new loot notification. A symbiotic egg of the blood-striped Buddha Heart Lotus. Picking it up, he learns it's mortal tier with solid attributes, though while the real Lotus commands multiple chi skills, this egg's version is weaker, only carrying a single skill. Wary of hatching straight into another disappointing larva, he considers fusing it instead. But the fusion rate's abysmally low. Then another system prompt catches his eye, suggesting he just feed it to the silver-winged mosquito directly. He remembers feeding it a legendary egg last time triggered a growth spurt. So maybe this'll do the same. He hits feed but nothing visibly happens. Looks like he might have just torched a legendary egg for nothing, still no clue what actually triggers this thing's growth. Cut to his avatar sprinting back toward the small Buddhist temple. Nearing the entrance, he swaps his active chi spell over to the short sutra on perfect wisdom, and feels genuinely satisfied watching it cycle through him flawlessly. Once inside, he spots the Buddha statue again, and suddenly something starts dripping off it. An enchantment glowing faintly right beneath his avatar. He braces for another instant kill trap. But nothing happens. Instead, a cluster of orbs materializes around him, and looking closer, he realizes they're actually symbiotic eggs. A system window pops up with cryptic text. Apparently, the statue represents one of Buddhism's 5 wisdom kings, who have conquered the 3 realms of desire, form, and formlessness, and is offering him an egg as a gift. Joe finds it genuinely bizarre statues handing out free eggs. Trying to check the stats, the system flags them as unknown, unreadable. So he just picks one at random from the 3. The instant he selects, the system announces mythical creature hatching confirmed. Joe absolutely loses it, chucking his phone across the room. He never confirmed anything of the sort. It's not that he's against a mythical pet, those things are ridiculously powerful. The problem is even legendary hatchings nearly killed him, so a mythical one sounds genuinely terrifying. But the confirmation's locked in and the pain begins. This dark red substance starts choking him, and he's desperately hoping he's not about to become the first guy to die from a video game. A while later, he's sprawled out on the floor looking like he just survived something deeply traumatic. Genuinely stunned he's even alive after the mythical hatching. He can feel both his blood and chi completely drained. Worth it though, since there's no way he'd have gotten something this adorable otherwise. The creature's named Dieting. He's confused at first, a mythical creature supposed to be a walking apocalypse. But this little guy doesn't fit that bill at all. Grabbing his phone, he checks its stats. Bad news, the system labels it as an ordinary creature still in its primary stage. What throws him is that this so-called ordinary thing has every stat sitting in double digits, which is anything but ordinary. Still, he was promised mythical, and right now this feels like a scam pulled by the system itself. Still, he mulls over that primary stage label, wondering if this thing can grow the way his mosquito did. In myth, the White Hound of Bodhisattva K letter 1E63 ITIG RBH could hear everything across heaven and earth, And in Journey to the West, Dieting alone could tell the real Monkey King apart from the six-eared macaque when even gods couldn't. This tiny thing, though, looks nothing like those legends. Curious, he checks out its symbiotic form. The little creature morphs into an ear-piercing ring. The moment it activates, his senses sharpen dramatically, hearing and awareness both cranking way up. He can even pick up voices from outside his dorm room. That's when he catches in Jing's voice, groaning intensely enough that he starts assuming she's, busy with something private. Feeling like a total creep for eavesdropping, he tries tuning it out, but her groaning keeps escalating, sounding less like pleasure and more like genuine distress. He rushes to her door, pounding on it, asking if she's okay. No response and panic starts setting in, determined to help. He backs up and charges the door like a battering ram. Still no luck. Turns out in Jing's security door is basically bank vault grade. Meanwhile, she's lying there, baffled how he can even hear her through all this. The absolute last thing she wants is him seeing her right now. Before he can actually break through, she yells for him to stop. The pounding halts instantly but naturally. Joe just climbs in through the window instead, leaving her completely stunned. The second he's inside, he asks if she's okay. Mortified, she demands to know how he even got through the window. He explains, totally oblivious that he assumed she was in danger since nobody answered. He offers to call a doctor if she's actually hurt. Terrified, she quickly tells him she's dealt with this plenty of times before and it'll pass soon. That's when this genius genuinely asks if she's on her period. She stares at him like he's the dumbest person alive, chucks a mug at his face and reluctantly confirms yes, obviously. Then she shoves him out and slams the door. Textbook misread on his part. Meanwhile, inside, she slumps against the door, sliding straight to the floor, burning red with embarrassment over the whole disaster. Joe heads back to his own room and starts prepping food, grabbing red dates specifically to help recover faster. His phone buzzes and he picks up. It's Lee Cheon. The Playboy mentions the new semester's officially kicking off today and every club's out recruiting, so he suggests wandering campus to scope things out and meet people. Joe flatly says clubs aren't his thing. Lee Cheon pitches teaming up instead, offering to start his own club and help Joe climb the ranks. Except, obviously, Joe can already climb ranks fine just by gaming, so he shuts it down. Lee Cheon pushes back, reminding him most college assignments need a full team, and nobody wanted to team with them during the entrance exam. Does he really want a repeat of that? Fair point, honestly. Joe caves, though he reminds Lee Cheon that the two of them alone can't legally form a club. Lee Cheon waves it off, saying they'll figure it out. Cut to outside, where students crowd the central square, and Joe's already feeling overwhelmed by the sheer numbers. Somewhere in the crowd, Lee Cheon calls out from the stairs, standing next to a girl. Meeting up, he immediately asks why Joe's carrying a bag. Joe explains it's red dates and wolfberry tea for replenishing blood. That's when the girl chimes in, suggesting since he's already here, he should just join Wei Yang's club instead. Adding they've got plenty of lovely girls who'd love to have him. Turns out Wei Yang's Lee Cheon's sister, which explains why he immediately protests, insisting Joe's joining his club. He accuses his sister of trying to bait Joe with pretty faces, insisting they're not falling for it. Meanwhile, judging by how much he's drooling, Lee Cheon's clearly the one tempted. Joe admits it's not that he's uninterested in the whole meeting cute girls angle, he just already promised Lee Cheon he'd join his club. Wei Yang's sister shrugs it off, saying she'll look forward to cooperating with Lee Cheon's club down the line if needed. The pervert brother flashes her a cheerful thumbs up while Joe just stands there in silence. Once the girls leave, Lee Cheon teases Joe for letting a whole squad of pretty girls walk away. Joe tells him to cut the jokes and get serious. Is he actually committed to starting this club or not? He warns that if they don't start recruiting fast, every freshman worth having will get snapped up elsewhere. Lee Cheon points out there's literally nothing they can do. Freshmen have to wait a full month before applying to found a club, plus they need at least 5 members, which they don't have. Annoyed, Joe asks why they're even out here then. Lee Cheon grins, proudly admitting they're here to scope out girls, obviously. That just irritates Joe further, realizing he passed on joining a girl-filled club for absolutely nothing. Right then, a familiar voice calls out to him. Turning around, Joe spots 2 familiar faces from his old high school days. Genuinely surprised, he finds it kind of funny they all landed at Sunset College again. Lee Cheon practically jumps out of his skin spotting the girl in shorts, immediately demanding to know who this knockout is. Joe introduces her as Feng Ryuoxi, an old classmate. Lee Cheon leans over, whispering how Joe possibly missed his shot with her back then, though he's clearly thrilled to meet her now regardless. He immediately invites her to join his club, and to his shock, she agrees on the spot. That's when he remembers to mention the club can't officially form for another month, so she'll have to sit tight. She agrees to wait, and turns to Joe, bowing slightly in apology. Genuinely sorry for leaving him off the team during the entrance exam, which might have cost him his shot. Lee Shuwen watches curiously, wondering if she enrolled here specifically because of Joe. Joe forgives her easily, saying it wasn't fully her fault anyway. The blonde guy beside her awkwardly chimes in too, admitting they had no real choice back then, promising it won't repeat. Lee Shuwen tells everyone to relax and skip the formalities since they're all friends now, suggesting they call it a night and rest up for tomorrow's combat test. Joe's a little thrown, asking if they're really jumping straight into a combat test on day one and whether it's happening in Buddha City. Lee Shuwen clarifies it won't be, that place is too fresh and dangerous for freshmen. Ryuoxi jumps in, explaining that based on past years, the college usually picks one of 4 stable dimensional realms for testing. Just kill a dimensional creature to pass, with score scaling by kill count. Intrigued, Joe asks how she knows all this. She casually points out it's all posted on the college's dimensional forum. Not long after they split up, Joe takes a quiet walk, mulling over how the Federation actually set up that dimensional forum specifically to help people share intel across different realms. No real name registration required, and both military and civilians can post whatever they want. He never paid it much attention back at Gaida High since they rarely dealt with anything this complex dimensionally. He never expected everyone at Sunset College to actually rely on this forum for real communication. Now he's thinking it's worth learning the ropes and jumping in himself. While he's zoned into his phone, someone calls out, asking if he's the special admit student living in this building. Joe glances around trying to place the voice, only to realize the short girl's standing right in front of him. Guess his giraffe-length neck made him miss her entirely. He introduces himself as Joe Wen, mentioning he's on the 2nd floor. Bubbling with energy, she introduces herself as Wang Liu, also a special admit, so he can just call her Liu. Turns out she's on the 1st floor, making them neighbors. But the second her enthusiasm ramps up, he vanishes into thin air, leaving nothing but the sound of a slamming door. Guess she's just found herself a genuinely weird neighbor. Joe drops his bag, fires up his PC, and dives headfirst into the forums. Turns out it's a massive information-sharing platform, open to literally anyone. The college and everyday civilians alike post dimensional intel here constantly. He's shocked there's 0 real name registration required at all, and that the Federation isn't remotely worried about criminals or hostiles mining the platform for intel. On top of that, there's a whole reward system letting users trade resources using dimensional points earned from posting. He's genuinely amazed you can earn points just for sharing knowledge. The first method's clicks on free posts, but that only trickles in a few points, even with thousands of readers. The real money's in paid posts, no cap on content, and posters set their own prices. But since the forum's fully anonymous, users tend to be wary of getting scammed, so they mostly stick to trusted, established posters. The Federation and college also drop cheap official strategy guides for a few points. Joe mulls over what to actually post, but it doesn't take long before he's got his angle locked in and he fires off his first post. Meanwhile, we cut to a teacher lounging in bed, sipping tea while scrolling the forum, wading through the usual freshman thirst trap posts trying to flex for attention. Skimming past the noise, she finally stumbles on something genuinely interesting, a strategy guide for the small Buddhist temple priced at a staggering 20,000 dimensional points. Her jaw practically drops. How would anyone even know about that temple? That whole zone's been locked down as forbidden, all info suppressed. Most teachers don't even know its name. She suspects a scam, especially given the account's brand new. But if it's legit, this could genuinely reshape how the military approaches exploration there. Curiosity wins out and she drops 20,000 points to unlock it. Turns out, absorbing chi through the Buddha Heart Lotus's dimensional crystal via meditation counters the twisting force guarding the temple, and higher-tier crystals extend that protection even longer. She finds this bizarre. Nobody in their right mind bothers practicing a basic chi skill this low tier, and even handing it out free, nobody would want it. She starts wondering if she's been played. Meanwhile, back with Joe, he's grinding away in-game again, farming the skeleton knight on repeat. After enough kills, he finally lands a symbiotic egg drop. He immediately feeds it to his pet, muttering at it to actually grow instead of just eating non-stop. Guessing he's finally sick of farming skeleton knights, he decides it's time to push deeper into unexplored territory. Soaring through the area, he's confused, finding 0 skeleton soldiers despite venturing way deeper than before. Then something odd catches his eye on the ground. A massive ancient tower, Yanbo's tower from some old imperial city. Genuinely thrown by this, why would Yanbo's tower even be here? Quick history lesson: Yanbo was the son of Zhuangsu, one of the 5 legendary emperors embodying the fire god. The tower, known as the Fire God's Stargazing Perch, is historically supposed to sit southwest of ancient Gaida City, not actually inside it. But finding it here in-game makes 0 sense to him. Suddenly something launches off the tower and locks onto him instantly, a fiery bird-shaped creature, diving at him with bullet-level speed. He braces immediately, firing off ash palm. But the flaming eagle just phases clean through it. He's completely baffled, felt like hitting nothing but air as the bird zipped straight past him. In the next second, its flames scorch his avatar to ash. Back in reality, he chugs an energy drink, sets the empty glass down and dives back in, determined to crack this new threat. This time he's flying via his mosquito's symbiotic form, but since it's built for low-altitude agility, he can't just soar straight above the tower to scope it out. Making things worse, this relentless bird's hunting him from behind and he needs to shake it first. Recalling how it earlier prioritized whoever was closest to the tower, he decides to bait it deliberately. Reaching a set altitude, he cancels his symbiotic form midair and starts free-falling, wingless. Right on cue, the firebird dives straight for him. But his mosquito swoops in and drops it in a single clean strike. Turns out Magic Light Sting actually works on the firebird, unlike Ash Palm, which did absolutely nothing. Curiously, the system never even flagged the kill. Either way, he starts climbing the tower stairs to investigate personally. But two more firebirds swoop in fast, and he immediately sends his mosquito to draw their attention. It darts around with sharp agility, luring both birds off and clearing his path, giving him room to climb as fast as possible. Except the ascent doesn't stay smooth, the fire atop the tower flares back to life. And this time, a whole squad of firebirds converges on him. Instead of retreating, he pushes full send, leaping straight into the swarm, Ash Palm carving him a path through the flock. As he nears the summit, characters start emerging beneath the searing flames, written in Chinese. Before he can even process the meaning, a massive explosion rips through everything and the game cuts out yet again. That word he glimpsed translated to Imperial, though he's still lost on the context. He's certain this dungeon's built on the real ancient Gaida city, yet in-game, it's labeled the ancient Imperial City for some reason. He also notes 0 kill confirmation popped up after downing those firebirds, probably summoned constructs tied to some chi skill, which makes him curious what's waiting at the source. He's sure there's serious lore buried in that tower, but no way to dig further right now. Checking the forum, he's shocked to see he's already banked 20,000 dimensional points twice. Turns out farming cash through this forum's easier than he thought. Though his satisfaction gets cut short by a direct message, someone wants to talk specifics about the small Buddhist temple. On the other end of that message, the junior agent's anxiously waiting for Joe's reply. Earlier, she'd already run everything by her senior, laying out how meditation apparently counters the temple's mysterious pressure. Her senior confirmed it, they've tested it, and it works. But both of them are stuck on who this mystery poster even is, clearly holding insider knowledge on the temple. Her senior mentioned a stone tablet standing right in front of it, engraved with a chi spell. Apparently similar tablets show up in other realms too. Rumor has it whoever practiced that spell unlocked some genuinely mysterious power, though the reality's apparently way more complicated. Something's deeply off about that short sutra etched on the temple's tablet. Her senior even mentioned volunteers who tried memorizing the inscription. Every single one of them ended up dead. The junior's stunned hearing that, and her senior tells her practicing the short sutra requires something very specific. He tells her to squeeze more useful details out of this mystery poster. So now, anxiously refreshing her screen, she finally gets a reply from Joe. She types fast, asking if he knows about the short sutra on perfect wisdom. Joe confirms he does, only cementing her suspicion further that this guy genuinely knows the temple's secrets. As he waits, she follows up asking exactly how he learned to practice it, offering top price for the answer. Except the truth is, Joe himself has no real idea how he learned it. Then it clicks, he remembers nearly blacking out from that brutal headache reading the tablet, and how the lost immortal sutra was the only thing that eased the pain. Guess that's the missing piece, the sutra is what made this possible. Realizing that's information he can't exactly hand over, he just tells her flatly he can't help with this, and closes the tab without another word. The next day rolls around, and students start filing into class. We catch Li Xuan greeting the morning alongside our boy who looks utterly wrecked and barely conscious. Li Xuan gives him a light lecture about not burning himself out gaming all night. And yeah, fair, Joe spent the entire night pushing deeper into the ant nest, chasing leads, and came up completely empty. Even with his evolved mosquito handling those black mosquitoes fine, the mortal-level skeletons back in his own storyline are still risky, way too weak to yield any decent loot. Once everyone's settled in class, a stunning black-haired beauty walks in, instantly turning every hormonal guy in the room into a puddle. Cheerfully, she greets the class and introduces herself as Wang Fei, literally meaning king's concubine. As lively as she seems, there's no hiding the exhaustion in her eyes, courtesy of a full night spent waiting on a reply from the mystery poster, who, of course, is Joe. Meanwhile, Lee Shuan, being exactly who he is, asks if he can be the king in her life. She laughs it off, saying if he passes her test and graduates properly, sure, maybe. After a bit of playful banter, she gets serious. The entrance test requires killing one demonized general in Tiger Cage Pass within 10 days. Teams of up to 4 are allowed. She adds the fight itself has to wrap in under 90 seconds or it's an automatic fail and expulsion. The whole class erupts. Several students protesting that they're still mortal level, no way they can pull this off. She calmly assures them 10 days is plenty provided they take it seriously. She announces Tiger Cage Pass access is open for the full 10 days, and she's looking forward to seeing everyone still standing when it's over. Lee Shuan looks just as lost, honestly clueless about what demonized generals even are, asking why they're such a big deal. Lee Shuan explains Tiger Cage Pass used to be an ancient battlefield, meaning its creatures hit way above average. Among legendary tiers, demonized generals sit near the top, some even push past standard legendary limits entirely. Given most freshmen are still mortal level, this test is brutal by design. Joe figures the smart move is scouting Tiger Cage Pass firsthand before committing to anything. Cut to the staff office where a male teacher's flagging down Wang Fei directly, pointing out that a test this harsh feels excessive for special admit students who are, ultimately, just regular kids. She agrees but mentions she's already posted full intel on demonized generals to the forum. With proper prep, this task is genuinely doable. She clarifies she's not trying to wash anyone out, she just wants them staying grounded instead of overconfident. Since what's waiting further down the road is far more dangerous than this, back with the group. Standing at the gates of Tiger Cage Pass, the moment they step through, they land in a desert, surrounded by strange sand-dweller-looking figures milling around. Turns out these are just demonized soldiers and Lee Shuan's visibly unimpressed. They were hoping for actual demonized generals. He suggests pushing deeper to hunt for real ones. Joe flatly shuts that down, wanting to play it safe instead of gambling their lives. He points out they know next to nothing about this place and he's not signing up to be Lee Shuan's personal life insurance again. Lee Shuan calls him a killjoy and Joe just walks off, saying he's scouting solo. As he wanders, it's clear he's actually hunting for a dungeon marker to scan into his phone. Figuring if underground Buddha City and ancient Gaida City both had one, this place probably does too. His eyes land on a nearby statue and squinting closer, he spots exactly the palm-shaped emblem he's been hunting for. Without hesitation, he pulls out his phone to scan it. A bit later, other students are already brawling with the demonized soldiers while Lee Shuan watches from above, clearly underwhelmed. To him, these things are barely a speed bump, kind of laughable really, considering how paranoid Joe was being about them. Speaking of Joe, he returns, telling Lee Shuan it's time to move. Lee Shuan agrees, but the second he clocks Joe's suspiciously good mood, a chill runs straight down his spine. As they head out through the gate, Lee Shuan points out how weirdly happy Joe looks and Joe flatly denies it. While internally, he's absolutely buzzing. He just scored himself a brand new dungeon to dig in.